Welcome. So good to see everybody. A lot of people here today. I love it. Well, welcome to this commission regular meeting. Today's Tuesday, February 26, 2019. It is 6 p.m. We're in the city chambers, and I call the commission regular meeting to order. Those present with me are Commissioner Luke, Vice Mayor McDowell, myself, Mayor Hanks, Commissioner Carasone, Commissioner Emrich, Assistant City Manager Ms. Branco. I have Assistant City Attorney Mr. Golan. I have our City Clerk Ms. Pito and our Assistant City Clerk Ms. Taylor, along with Police Chief Garrison is back there, and I saw Chief Titus also. So also remember, if you have a public comment card, they're right here. You can find them right over here next to the officer, and fill those out. You have 3 minutes for that. Please turn off your phones or put them on vibrate. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if I can get an approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
The approval of the agenda moved by Commissioner Carasone, seconded by Vice Mayor. Can we take the vote?
I don't have a voting thing. Hold on. I am. There we go. Got it.
It is approved unanimously. We'll move on to announcements. City Clerk will read the announcements into the record.
Thank you. We have the current vacancies on the following boards and committees: the Art Advisory Board, the Audit Committee, the Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee, Charter Review Advisory Board, Community Economic Development Advisory Board, the Environmental Advisory Board, Historic and Cultural Advisory Board, Joint Management Advisory Board, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, the Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, Public Utilities Advisory Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, and we also have the Northport Youth Council. We have the following upcoming expirations on the following boards and committees: the Art Advisory Board, Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway, Charter Review Advisory Board, Citizens Tax Oversight, Police Pension Board of Trustees, and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. There is a position for a Northport resident to serve on the Sarasota Manatee Metropolitan Planning Organization's Tamiami Trail Scenic Highway Committee, and a position for a Northport resident to serve on the Sarasota County School Board Citizen Advisory Committee for School Facility Planning. If anybody would like information on those, they can see us at the City Clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to public comment. Vice Mayor, do I have anything?
Here for you for general public comment.
Okay. Wonderful. I'm going to call up three of you, Miss Laura Ross, Natalie Ross, and then Timothy Doyle will be after that. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name for the record.
Okay, my name is Laura Ross. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Laura Ross, and I'm here tonight with my children, Natalie and Jonathan Ross. We're here tonight to discuss with you the importance of the Northport Natural Corridor that lies between Little Salt Springs and the Mycahhatchee Creek, which you voted unanimously to be preserved on May 3rd, 2018. It has recently been brought to light that city staff are requesting to revisit the Springhaven expansion project as an agenda item at an upcoming meeting to serve as an emergency access route for the Jockey Club. As discussed during the May 3rd, 2018 meeting last year, this corridor is absolutely vital to our local wildlife, as there is little to no green space that connects Little Salt Springs to the Mycahhatchee. Little Salt Springs is currently owned by the University of Miami. However, Sarasota County Commissioners have expressed their interest in obtaining ownership of the property, as discussed in their Board of County Commissioners meeting on June 12, 2018, and also via an email correspondence on January 2nd, 2019. The corridor will have an even more utmost importance for our wildlife and for our future generations when the time comes for Little Salt Springs to be owned and managed by the county. It is crucial that the city takes the correct steps now in order to preserve this property for the impeding future of the area, for our wildlife, and for our future generations of Northport and Sarasota County. Natalie, Jonathan, and I are here to urge you to please keep your once unanimous vote when this topic comes up for discussion, and to vote once again unanimously to preserve this area, as their future is in your hands. We hope that you are able to keep our faith in you, that we may rely on you once again to keep your word to preserve the Northport Natural Corridor. Thank you for your time, your consideration, and we hope you have a blessed night.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Laura.
you.
Ms. Natalie?
Go on, baby.
Before we move on, can we get clarification on that? Because I specifically asked the city manager whether that was true or not, and it was told to me that we're still moving forward with allocating to get those pieces of land and preserve the area. So
It's one of
This
the
is a-
options on it.
the first I've heard of it.
It's one of the options, ma'am.
One of the options they're bringing.
Veronica?
Yes, just as an update, so we're talking about the purchasing of property, about 30 properties along Spring Haven Drive. We are in the process right now. We're still moving forward with that. We haven't started negotiations, but we are in the process. And so at that point, anything comes back, we'll be bringing that item back to the commission to make a decision.
Thank you.
Good.
Ms. Natalie?
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Natalie Ross. You guys need to buy the property because the animals need to live in it. They need food and water to live. Because the property has everything animals need to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Natalie.
Good job.
Fantastic.
Mr. Doyle?
My name is Tim Doyle. So what I brought here today to talk about kind of goes with the picture I had and something I wrote to the court. I would return receipt. They received it. They didn't care about it. But I wrote in here, the town should also be held responsible. I wrote that to the judge. Didn't care. The reason why I say that is because when you looked at that picture, he was 3 feet from that fence. Everybody from the patrol officer to police chief told me that he could go within 3 feet of that fence because there was some ordinance in this town that allowed him, even though there was a no trespass order. You eventually arrested him, so I must have been right. Now, the person who was 3 feet from the fence was also told by the police that he could go there. So that's why I think the town is culpable. If you get my gist, go ask him. I don't think he'd lie about that. And that's part of my problem. She's been looking up the codes and reading them all. I haven't found that code yet. You know? So, you know, if you ask me why you're culpable, I didn't know a police department could give away my property to my neighbor after a trespass order, and there isn't any ordinance or law that I know of, personally, that allows it. Now, I will give kudos to the new police chief. He had someone call me this week. Okay? That's more than I think any of you have done. And I believe you guys have promised me a phone call on this. Or the mayor has asked. So I thank the police chief for having that person call me. I apologize if I said anything wrong to that person on the phone. As you can see, as I think about it more, I get upset. If I said any words that were wrong, I apologize to that woman. But I hope I didn't. I really tried to watch my language. So I hope I didn't. But I do appreciate the new police chief calling and asking through someone else. And I also want to say something. The person was a volunteer from Massachusetts. Mr. Mayor, the number 800 used with her, she met 800 people who personally worked for me. Their spouses, their kids, their grandparents.
Thank you, Mr.
In
Doyle.
Massachusetts, you have absolute responsibility for everything your
Thank you, Mr. Doyle.
employees do. Look up the law.
Ms. Sandra Lee Henderson?
My name is Sandra Lee Henderson, and I don't really enjoy these meetings, but here we are again. Ready? Got 3 minutes. We have received numerous violations letters which have come to our house, and every time we get a violation, I believe someone has to go and check on that. These people drive by several other violations before they even get to my house because I live off a road, off a road, off a road. I don't live on a main street. We are being singled out either by a complaining neighbor or someone at the town because not everyone gets these letters. I'm not even sure everybody knows how many ordinances you have in this town. And if you knew them all, you'd have to apply them all evenly. And I know you're not doing that. I really just want you to apply them evenly. When you move into town, do I get a book of ordinances? Like, don't cut the grass, put out the mower, don't cut the trees, park over here, don't park over there. You don't even have anything, all your ordinances. You have like 300 and some ordinances. Not everyone can know them. And how am I supposed to get them? So I go to the library and ask her. There's 80 chapters of ordinances. She agrees, 80 chapters of laws and regulations that you have to know as a citizen of this town. Nobody can learn them. Some of the people on this board have told me you don't even know them all. There's just too many to know. Okay, next. In November, I called to complain about one of these ordinances with my neighbor parking on the driveway, the right-of-way, and actually in the street. You were very kind to come out and check on this. Again, driving by 5 other violations in my neighborhood, but you checked on it. That was very kind of you. I asked on the phone if seasonal and year-round residents were treated differently, and you assured me that that was not the policy of this town. Now imagine the next day, the trailer was gone, the truck was gone, the Jeep was gone, they were out of the road, off the right-of-way. I don't know where they went, but they were gone, and they remained that way for 2 weeks while I was here on vacation. That was awesome. You guys have quick power sometimes, but not always. So I guess what I really would like is I would like you to enforce those ordinances fairly to every one of the citizens in this town. Old, young, rich, poor, seasonal, non-seasonal. If you're going to have all those ordinances, they need to be enforced fairly to everyone. So if I get a letter from my trash and I can see she has a trash bill and he has a trash bill and she has a trash bill, well then you need to send out 6 letters, just not 1. I'd like to also wish that you would focus on the ordinances that only have to do with safety. If my barrel is out or not, I'm sure that's not helping you. But if someone blocks my driveway and there is an ambulance or a fire truck or a policeman that needs to park on the side of the road, he can't do so because someone else has already blocked it. I understand that as a safety issue. But if we could get the ordinances so that you could actually help the citizens, that would be great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. Ms. San Luis.
Sir?
Oh, your time's up, ma'am.
Yep, I said thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I called Ms. San Luis.
Oh, say me, thank you, sorry.
Hello, my name is Joan here in San Luis, and I live in Northport year-round. I want to start my 3 minutes talking about the natural wildlife corridor that currently exists in Northport that allows animals free access from the Little Salt Spring to the creek by way of the undeveloped land that up until last year was going to be developed by completing the Springhaven Drive, thus terminating the free access to the animals. Another aspect of this corridor is the purchase of the lots. These are 2 separate issues relating to the same corridor. Kudos to this commission for passing the motion last year that put a stop to any additional construction on Springhaven Drive. I repeat, this commission voted and instructed staff to cease working on completion of Springhaven Drive. I was shocked and appalled when I was informed in these last few months by city staff that it was their intention to recommend to this commission that Springhaven Drive should be completed for a variety of reasons too complex for this speech. What on earth gives the city staff the audacity to go against the express direction of this commission? No construction means no construction. Who runs the city, the commission or the city staff? Now I will speak to the Warm Mineral Springs Master Plan, which is massive and complex. I am against doing any development on the 60 acres. The city and county have massive amounts of parks and trails. No more are needed. Kudos for the efforts to obtain public input, however biased the questions were. Additionally, the lack of any marketing research and potential usage surveys is appalling. Finally, for the first time today, today's presentation contains estimated costs. For this commission to approve an almost $20 million project, this plain boggles my mind. I do support the improvements needed to the structures on the 20 acres. I am against putting a window in the cyclorama. An attachment to the agenda appropriately states, natural berms or noise abatement options to be located between the park site and surrounding neighborhood. In addition to that statement, I am requesting that this commission add the following. Natural berms or noise abatement options to be located between the 20 acres and the 60 acres. This will ensure the serene swimming nature of swimming in the springs. When in the water, a swimmer should not be able to see any structures or trails or hear or smell any structures or trails on the 60 acres. Please vote to do what is best for our environment and our economic well-being. Do not cast your vote so you can say, quote, I was on the commission, did so-and-so. A better writer than me wrote the following. The time has arrived for all people to pause and consider the welfare of future generations. It is neither morally acceptable nor legally defendable to knowingly damage, disrupt, or destroy elements of our world for the interest of short-term financial gain for the few or for the excesses of an avaricious society in general at the expense of our future generations. Decisions must be based upon scientific evidence, not political whim, nor money-induced corruption. There are critical environments associated with the Florida that are vital to the quality of life, a healthy, sustainable economy, and a spiritual balance. These must be protected, restored, and sustained for ourselves and for our posterity. I thank you for your time and your service.
Thank
Right
you,
on
Ms.
time.
Sandlin. Thank you. Do I have any?
I don't have any more for this.
Okay. Was it for general comment?
Miss Juliet, I have you down for Warren Middle Springs, which is the next item we're going to be discussing.
I also wanted this one.
I don't have one,
You want to
a
use it
card
for
for
this
that
one?
one.
Yes, please, if you would.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead, Ms. Julie.
I can fill out another one for Warren Middle Springs, right? Can I have another one for Warren Middle Springs?
You can fill it out there. Yes, ma'am.
Well, howdy, Commissioners. Julia Jones, City of Northport, Post Office, actually Warren Mineral Springs. Animals shape our lives, our history, and our hearts. And Mahatma Gandhi said the greatness of a nation can be judged by the way the animals are treated. Okay. And in our whole modern Western industrial culture where development is gobbling up everything, anyone who's got a mind and a heart can see that we're generally going in the wrong direction, and the society is feeling the pressure of that. I would like to see Warren Mineral Springs stand high on a mountaintop as a protector of nature, of animals, of the way we live. Let's leave some space here for the creatures that are vulnerable. You know, when I'm in an angry state, I often say the apex predator in the country today is the human animal. Okay? They're much more destructive than alligators, and they wantonly take up the territory that vulnerable animals need to survive, and they come and die in my yard. Thank God I'm a hospice chaplain. I know what to do and how to take it. But I would just say to you, let's look at our hearts about this. Let's protect our nature, because in 20 years, it's going to have a value now that it's only beginning to point to today, right? And we think we live in a great country. Well, then we should demonstrate that greatness by protecting wildlife. Where, as Chief Seattle said, what is life without the mystery of nature, without the birds in the sky? You know, at night when I listen outside my yard, I'm fortunate to live behind Warren Mineral Springs, I hear the calls of animals. I feel the mystery of the night. If that ceases to be, I would leave this area, because that is, I'm connected to all those things, and you are too. We all are. We eat them, we use them as our workforce, but they're part of the environment in which we are all connected, in which the highest creation, God itself, is connected with animals. So let's leave a little bit of, I ask you, and I have to say kudos to the Ross girls over here, because they're right.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Jones. Thank you, Ms. Jones. believe that's it for public comment. We're going to move on to presentations, but before we do, I do want to remind the commission that this is an evening meeting, as we all know, and we will be pushing through this because we want to keep in mind each other, staff, and citizens as we move forward, and there are some heavy topics in here, so just want everybody to know that we will be pushing through them. So first, presentations, we have item A, which is Kimley Horn and Associates going to bring us a presentation on Warm Mineral Springs. City Manager.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Staff and consultants from Kimley Horn Associates will be providing a presentation on the Warm Mineral Springs Park Draft Master Plan and Summary Report. This is a follow-up to the January Commission workshop where the Warm Mineral Springs Conceptual Master Plan was presented and Commission provided feedback and suggestions. Sandy Funheller, Parks and Recreation Director, will provide a brief overview.
Thank you. Good evening.
Excuse me 1 second, Mayor. The gentleman out in the audience, it appears that he wants to speak now, but again, he has it down here for Warm Mineral Springs. So after the presentation.
Yeah, we all, yeah. Yes, sir. We. Yeah, when it has to do with an agenda item, we always do it before or right after the motion.
Right after the.
I'm sorry, before the motion, when it's on a topic. Otherwise, we do it during the general time, which just took place. I said typically if it is an agenda item request, then it is taken right before the motion, so that way we can hear your point before we make a motion. Or else it's done during the general, but you had put on here item 4A, so that's why we waited. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. For the record, Sandy Funheller, Parks and Recreation Director. Today, consultants from Kimley Horn and Associates will present the draft master plan and summary book for Warm Mineral Springs Park. The draft master plan incorporates the feedback that was provided by Commission during the January 7th, 2019 workshop, which includes removing camping, equestrian trails, and the future parking area that were shown on the conceptual plan, relocating the marketplace courtyard, adding a bus drop-off lane and picnic pavilions, and adding a restroom near the community garden. Also included with this agenda item is the National Register of Historic Places application, which is scheduled for review by the Florida National Register Review Board this May. The results from the various community and stakeholder meetings and the opinion of probable construction costs, which takes into consideration park features, utility improvements, site improvements and infrastructure, building renovations, and new building structures for the entire 80-acre site. Staff anticipates using a phased approach to implement the master plan, pending Commission direction and available funding. After the presentation and discussion tonight, staff are seeking consensus for the overall plan, along with direction on phasing priorities, with then bringing this back at a future Commission meeting for the final master plan. Once we get the final master plan adopted, the next step would be to begin negotiations to award phase 2 of the master plan project. Now I'd like to turn it over to Kimley Horn and Associates for the presentation.
Good evening, members of the Commission, members of the public. My name is James Pankinen with Kimley Horn and Associates. I'm a landscape architect and park planner. With me tonight is John Bryant. He's the architect with Sweet Sparkman Architects. There we go. Tonight's agenda, we're going to review briefly the updates to the archaeological summary report that was included in the agenda packet. We're going to talk through the changes to the conceptual master plan, as Sandy mentioned, that was presented on January 7th. Based on those changes, then we'll review the draft master plan, current as of tonight, then talk about some of the key elements within the park, and then John is going to talk about the architectural renovations to the buildings, including the structural, MEP, and food service recommendations that would be associated with that, the proposed utility infrastructure improvements in order to accommodate the master plan, and then talk about project phasing, and then questions and comments. In the latest archaeological summary report, there's some recommendations that were added. This includes providing supervision for any archaeological investigations within the 325-foot sensitivity buffer zone around the spring. It actually ties back to a requirement that was put in place when the county had the property and registered on the historic register. To require a detailed research proposal for any future archaeological investigations that would take place within the site. To continue no sport or recreational diving within the spring. To develop an unanticipated finds plan that would outline procedures to follow should potential artifacts be uncovered during site development and construction. To provide contractor training regarding procedures and how to deal with anything that may be encountered, such as artifacts during construction. And then also to provide archaeological monitoring during that construction. And then also looking for opportunities to highlight Native American history, natural history of the springs, and also recognize the local archaeological, anthropological societies and local residents who have been stewards of this site for so many years. This is the conceptual master plan that we reviewed in the workshop, the commission workshop on January 7th. And this showed a number of program features that at the time we talked about during our community and stakeholder meetings. A lot of these program features were also included in the RFP that the city advertised for the park master plan, which we responded to. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but I would like to focus on the changes. But you can see the bubbles that float in correspond to the legend on the right. And again, we'll talk through the changes to the program as well as the new master plan here shortly. But in the interest of time, I'm not going to walk through all of these again in great detail. Based on that master plan that we presented then, there were a number of discussion items that we had at the commission workshop. Some were voted on, others were just agreed upon to make the changes. And so this is a summary of those changes, and then we'll review the current master plan. Number one was to review the proposed camping locations for tents and RVs and future cabins. And so those were located where the number one call out is here. Number two was to remove the parking improvements for the RVs and the horse trailers and the camping that we had in the southeast portion of the site. Number three was to remove the proposed equestrian trail since we weren't providing that as a park option. Number four was to remove the future parking area in the northern part of the site. Number five was to move that northern restroom to the south, closer to the event pavilion. Number six was to move that restroom closer to what we're calling the historical village or the outdoor education area. Number seven was to add an additional restroom near the community garden in the northern part of the site. And then number eight was to relocate that event and market plaza to the east end of the parking lot on the 60-acre portion of the park site. So based on those changes and based on the direction that we received back in January, we've made those corresponding changes to the plan, and that's what I'd like to spend the most of the time reviewing tonight. So this is the draft master plan that represents those changes. I want to talk through the program and some of the proposed spaces within the park now. Number one, and this really ties back to some of the goals that you put within the RFP, and that was to preserve and incorporate the existing tree canopy on the site. So we've done that. We've incorporated the trail system around the existing tree canopies and really use that as a site feature and a natural feature within the park program and the trail design. Number two was to preserve, renovate, and incorporate the existing structures. As Sandy mentioned, the historical designation application is in process, and John will be talking about the renovations to those buildings. Number three was to provide natural berms and noise abatement, both for the neighborhoods to the south and around the perimeter, as well as certain areas within the park. As Ms. San Luin mentioned, there are some areas where we don't want to, we want to make sure that people enjoying the spring aren't bothered by other park activities. Number four was parking improvements to handle both daily visitors as well as special events. We've expanded the parking lot here from about roughly 50 paved spaces in its current condition to about 160 as shown on the plan here. Number 5 and 6 were the development of a larger gathering area, festival area, and an open air amphitheater. And so that could take place in the lawn area that's shown here. Number 7 was improved site access. We anticipate providing monumentation and kind of entrance signage into the park on the southwest corner, and potentially up Ortiz as well to kind of announce the arrival to the park site. Number 8 was a system of pedestrian and bicycle trails throughout the park. On that, we anticipate a mix of asphalt as well as maybe shell or mulch trails. Number 9 was to provide trail connectivity to the broader community. So you can see that there's a connection to the neighborhood to the north. As part of this plan, we're proposing sidewalks along Ortiz as well as Triunfo in order to facilitate pedestrian access to the site from the adjacent neighborhoods. Number 10 was the opportunity to provide museum and historical educational exhibits. One of the things that we heard a lot about in our community meetings and in our stakeholder meetings was just the opportunities to celebrate the site from both natural history and Paleo-Indian history. And there's a number of ways that we can do that in terms of displays and signage. And so we anticipate that happening both at the renovated building complex, potentially in the cyclorama, as John will talk about. And then we also showed this area here along the trail system, which could be an opportunity for kind of an outdoor historical village or sort of a step back in time, which could have educational signage and different things associated with that. Number 11 was light retail for ice cream, boutique shopping, cafe dining and those sorts of things. So we're showing that at the renovated cafe space where the old restaurant was at the building complex, and then also the opportunity for flex space within the park that could be the home for pop-up events such as markets or food truck rallies or different types of events like that. Not permanent structures, but rather just a space where those things could happen. Number 12 was restroom facilities throughout the park. Number 13 was the relocation of the community gardens. Presently, they're located here in the northern kind of central part of the site. We've pushed them over here to the western part, kind of the northwest corner. In that location, there's a lot of open space, and so there's plenty of sun for the beds and for the things to grow. We're also showing a direct access to the community garden off of Ortiz and then Muskogee. So you could enter through a gated access here straight into the community garden, whereas currently you have to go down several roads and then ultimately down Durango, and you sort of enter the community garden between two residential lots. And so we've provided a more direct access and not making it go through the residential lots. Number 14 is utility and infrastructure upgrades in order to accommodate the proposed master plan. That's in the form of a lift station, water enhancements, as well as sewer enhancements. Number 15, this is actually an idea that came out of the community meetings, the idea to create and restore what would have been the native and historic landscape. So back in, if you were to be on the site within the Paleo-Indian era or when the settlers were first coming, what would the landscape have looked like? And so this is an opportunity to kind of recreate that, and also an opportunity to maybe take down some of the Australian pines that are along Ortiz. Those are invasive species, and so there may be an opportunity to phase those out while you replant this native landscape restoration area. Number 16, kind of in the center of the park there, is a event pavilion that could be sort of a wedding location or a destination or an outdoor classroom. Number 17 is the multi-purpose shelter that is sort of the anchor to that larger event lawn. And then we envision a smaller version of those in the form of picnic shelters flanking that event lawn. Number 19, we've got 2 lookout towers connected by a canopy walk within the wooded area of the site. And so that's an opportunity along the trail system to get to an elevated point and have really a different perspective and a different vantage point looking out over the rest of Warm Springs Park. And then along the trail system, we've also got some boardwalk crossings because there is a creek there. It's kind of an ephemeral creek, and so as it rains and it's wetter in the summertime, you'll have a little more water in there than you might during the middle of winter. but nevertheless, there is crossings there that we would need to facilitate. And so that represents the draft master plan concept as of tonight that incorporates the changes from our January commission workshop meeting. With that, just want to talk through a little more detail about some of the spaces from a trail circulation standpoint based on what
Yes, we have about 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Are you good?
I'm going to advance then to the building portion and let John talk through that.
Thanks, James. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Real quickly, one of the important parts of this concept design, the concept master plan, was the programming for the building. We obviously talked to citizens, we talked to Parks and Rec, commission input. One of the interesting and good things that came out of that was many of the uses and functions that are in the existing building are really what is still needed and desired. It's just, as we all know, the function, the condition of the current building really doesn't allow for those uses to occur. So I think that's a testament to the existing building that it really does meet the functions of the current space. It's just in its current configuration and of course its current condition, it really doesn't allow for that. So very quickly, the side to the left is the building, the portion of the building that faces the spring. The sides to the right is the parking. Of course, we have gift shop, meeting room, cyclorama, the trellis connection to the springs facing building, then of course locker rooms and cafe. And again, as I mentioned, through the programming effort, that really has stayed consistent in terms of the type of uses that need to occur at the building, and unfortunately it's in their current configuration. They really can't occur as they need to. So our concept plan really proposes a reorganization of a lot of the functions that already occur. So the gift shop still remains at front, but we allow for an entry on the original entry to the middle of the building, which also allows for the meeting room to be used in a more flexible manner where there's restrooms that are associated with it, allows the possibility that somebody could go to the cyclorama without entering into the park as an option, and then also provides what would be a secured entry into the park space through the gift shop. So completely new interior, new systems in the what we're calling the entry building. In the spa cafe building, again, similar functions to what occur now, but completely redone spaces, a new fitness multi-purpose room, reorganized, expanded locker facilities, ADA, restrooms, toilets, and also a reorganization. There's a whole bank of toilet rooms that are currently not accessible. They don't meet ADA and they just don't work. So reorganization of restrooms, and then a reorganization of the spa and the massage therapy spaces. And lastly, of course, a reorganization of the cafe space. So we would be proposing all new equipment, all new finishes, furnishings within the cafe space. I think as, let me go, obviously showing some building elevations. There's quite a bit of existing glazing that would need to be replaced. As we talked about in the last workshop, really the approach to the building would be preserve essentially the bones of the building, that all the glazing needs to come out, the roofing needs to come off. You would essentially maintain the existing wood roof joists that can be maintained, maintain the shape of that roof, maintain the original historic masonry walls, but really the finishes, all the systems would all need to be replaced to really bring the building up, to give it another useful life of 30 to 50 years. Just a couple views of sort of the new restored Springs building, obviously pulling off a lot of the kind of the barnacles that have grown over the years, cutting back the landscaping, really returning the building to sort of the simple, beautiful Sarasota School of Architecture building that was there when this opened in the 50s. Just another view from the back seating area that could be off the existing cafe. Again, restoring, really a beautiful building that serves that site well, and kind of restoring the simplicity and the elegance of the building within the site. The view here, I know at a previous workshop we had presented kind of a precedent image of a concept picnic shelter. We've developed that a little further and wanted it to be something a little bit funky, but that also picked up on some of the roof forms of the existing Sarasota School building. A thought that it could be cast-in-place concrete, something that's very low maintenance once it's installed. Again, just a concept view at this point, concept image. I think I've talked about, the sort of the anticipated scope of exterior and interior renovations. Again, a total gut renovation, really preserving the key historical elements, and then new layouts, new systems, new glazing.
Sir, about how much more do you have?
I'm going to stop at that. Yeah, I think.
I'll wrap up in 1 minute if that's okay. Yep. Thank you, John. I just want to summarize the infrastructure improvements. As we talk about the master plan, we know that some of the existing infrastructure on site needs to be upgraded. So we're proposing, and this is in coordination with the city's utility department, an 8-inch water main connection from Grove Street over to Ortiz. In this view, north is to the left, so it's been rotated. A new lift station at the park, and then a 12-inch water main connection from the park down to US 41, as well as an 8-inch force main from the park down to US 41 that can accommodate the build-out of what we're proposing with the master plan, as well as potentially some of the redevelopment of adjacent parcels. From a phasing standpoint, there's obviously a number of ways that you can kind of slice this up in terms of a first phase of implementation. But what we're proposing is kind of what is represented on the plan here. That would be to, one, renovate the existing structures, to provide the parking improvements, to create some park features in the form of the gathering space in the open-air amphitheater, the landscape berms and buffering associated with that, site access, the asphalt trail loop, which is this loop kind of west of the creek on the eastern part of the site, historical educational exhibits, the market plaza, one of the restrooms over in this location, the multi-purpose shelter, picnic shelters, and then one of the lookout towers that was proposed. Again, that can be divided in a number of ways depending on costs and what the desire is as far as the first phase of implementation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to questioning. Do like normal, about 8 minutes, and then we'll do another round if we need. Vice Mayor?
Great presentation, thank you.
Very good.
Are we weighing in on the phasing recommendations today?
You certainly can. This was our kind of first pass at maybe what would make sense in terms of balancing both the building renovation in order to service the springs, as well as providing some level of park features.
Okay.
So it's kind of a balance between the two.
So we'll talk about that,
sure,
because I don't agree with that. So I'm going to focus on, because I know we have limited time, so I'm going to go right to the actual master plan, the draft master plan. I made a few notes of things that I wanted to bring to your attention. If you go to page 8 of the master plan, in the middle by where the map is, it says here the eastern side of the property is flanked by an existing canal which leads north to Dare Prairie Creek. That canal runs adjacent to Dare Prairie Creek. It doesn't go to Dare Prairie Creek, it runs adjacent. It's a drainage canal.
This one here, yeah.
So, yes.
Okay.
So I think that wording just needs to be looked at and clarified.
Certainly.
Because at first, when I first read it, I thought they was talking about the creek going to Dare Prairie Creek.
Okay.
But just need to double check on that.
Okay.
Fast forward to 18. In the public involvement, the little, it captured some of the citizen comments. If you go to like the 5th quote, which by the way is a great idea, there is a typo in there. It should be where the residents can work in exchange. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Very small one. 27, this is a big one. This one I'm going to have the most discussion on, or questions on. If you could fast forward, can you, oh, this will be great. This is great right here. I'm going to focus on the parking and the bus loop. So if you could use your cursor to point out where the bus loop is
Here.
for the citizens in the audience. Do you see the little entrance for the bus loop? Which is straight down, straight down.
This,
Yes. That's the entrance for the bus loop, correct?
that's more of a alternate entrance. The bus could also come in from this direction and loop around
Okay.
and
'Cause
do something like that.
in the master plan on page 27, it shows that entrance as being the bus entrance. And if that's a bus entrance, you're gonna have problems logistically. We either need to move it over, so that way then they're just coming straight in, going to the loop, as opposed to where you have it now, where they're coming in, making a turn, going to the loop, making a turn, that kind of thing.
Got it, okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, yeah. Because what you're saying is if they were to come in here, they'd have to jog
Turn,
that
turn,
way.
turn, turn, exactly, and those are big buses, not cars.
Right. That's a great point.
So it either needs to be moved over to the flex space
Okay.
or moved over to where the actual drop-off is for pedestrians.
Okay.
Just pointing out a little bit of a problem, possibly. The elevated lookout tower, if you could point out where that is for the citizens, there you go, thank
So we're
you.
showing two of them here with a canopy walk, yep.
Happen to know about how tall that is?
I think the one out that we showed an example of from Robinson Preserve, I want to say was 60 to 70 feet tall,
So about 6 or 7 stories, give or take?
roughly, yeah.
Okay. Does our code, we have to look at that to make sure that it accommodates the code in this zoning district.
Okay.
Just something else to think about for when you bring back the master plan. That's
Sure.
all I'm making a suggestion on.
Okay.
Okay. The page 38, and I'm almost done, Mayor. Number 2, where you have, I don't know if you can bring up the building where it shows the covered walkway. Kind of shows it a little bit right here. If you look by the number 1, there's a covered walkway, or a walkway of some kind.
Right, uh-huh.
Is that going to be covered, or is that something we'll have to discuss when the time comes?
So the intent is that,
There it is,
yeah,
perfect.
here it is. So the question was related to this covered walkway here that connects the building. And historically, there was a pergola structure there. Currently, there's just posts and some beams, but the intent as part of the architectural renovations is that that would be replaced with a new aluminum structure, which would have a longer lifespan than the steel that was there. So the intent is, yes, that would be covered. Although pergola, so it's kind of open and covered.
So like a metal pergola as opposed to a wood pergola, is that what you're describing? Okay.
Because I think the old one had steel framing and then a wooden top.
I don't know, Mayor, do you want to get into the projected costs at this time, or do you want to stick with just the master plan right now? Okay, I got one final question. Grants. Can somebody give us an update on grants? Could someone give us an update on grants?
Sure. So, staff had applied for a grant that we were deemed eligible for the Cyclorama. However, it was for it's through the state, and it was put in with all the other projects from around the state, and we are pretty far down on the list. So they fund them until the money runs out. So it's unlikely that we will get that one, although we qualified. The other one that we just did in conjunction with the Utilities Department and our lobbyist was to apply for funding, and a House bill has been submitted. Get that information for you. A Florida House appropriation project request and a Florida Senate local funding initiative request were submitted for the expansion of water and wastewater service at War Mill Springs Park. It's for $1.4 million, and it was on 2/8/19 we were notified that the House appropriations project bill was filed and assigned bill number HB 3177.
3177? Thank you. The Event Plaza Market area, how big is that? Because I saw parking next to it, and I'm wondering if we need to remove that parking.
So let me get to the slide here. The question is in reference to this area.
Correct.
That's about 18,000 square feet, just over, so it's about 0.4 acres. And so again, the intent with that is that could be sort of it's kind of a paved motor court that could be parking on a daily basis, but then it could also be food truck or market plaza on a special event basis, like we're showing in some of the images here. So that was really the intent. There was some discussion during the master planning and input process about a boardwalk village or maybe retail opportunities, such as in the photo in the upper right there. We're proposing that activity could take place here, but in a temporary kind of pop-up event atmosphere, so that you're not investing in permanent structures at this point, but you do have the space to provide those activities if you would like to.
I'm just concerned, and thank you for clarifying how big it is. Knowing now how large it is, I'm concerned with the parking that's next to it. Maybe that should be kept as like a fire lane
Okay.
kind of thing. I'm just kind of thinking a little bit outside of the box on that.
Okay.
More for safety, so that there is a larger buffer between vehicles having, I'm just a little concerned with the parking along the flexi space.
Okay, well, we could look into maybe kind of right-sizing that depending on.
Okay, just a concern, so thank you. And yes, Mayor, I'm finished, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Luke?
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to go to that page 27 where she was talking about the bus. Currently, they come in from the side because I've ridden in buses over there that loop around. So if you just remove the bus entrance from down on Triunfo, you're fine bringing them in on Ortiz. So it could be a simple fix, just making it a second entrance, but buses not going into it, and I think it would handle it.
Okay.
Do you have a maintenance building in this?
We did show a maintenance building, if I can fast forward here.
On page 25. And it's showing it right off of Triunfo. So
Right.
Curious why a maintenance building would be right there front center of that area instead of being in the back, kind of hidden.
Back up over in the,
Where you had that parking at,
Okay.
before back there.
Okay.
Otherwise, you got a maintenance building and everything that's right there visible as you're driving by. Also, I noticed the two funky shaped buildings that we were calling it before. The one had like an area that could be used for maintenance type right there too. So, I mean, you could do a maintenance there also. We were going to talk cost later though, weren't we? Okay. Did you happen to speak with the Architectural College in Sarasota in regards to this restructuring? Did you get any input from them?
I'm sorry, the college or the?
Yeah, the ones who first built it.
Oh, the Sarasota school. Well,
Yeah.
that's really more of like a
movement.
Yeah, like a movement. It's a little confusing because it sounds like it'd be a school. It's really more, it's more of a movement. So it's more the term that's. Now I will say we did.
They exist.
It was sort of a term that was applied after the fact as sort of the Sarasota quote school, like just a group of people that were working. But to your point, we did talk to after our last workshop. We talked with Lori Muldowney, our historic preservation consultant, who is an expert on the Sarasota school, and so we've been talking through the renovations with her. And in fact, we specifically talked about the window and the cyclorama, and actually based on that discussion, we did take it out of the scope for now. But so yeah, we have gotten her input on the current plan.
Okay, and nobody has a problem with it being mid-century architecture then?
No, I mean, I think,
I'll view this rendering as mid-century.
Yeah, I would think there'll be a lot of support from, you know, the kind of architectural community, people that are interested in buildings to restore the building as we've proposed.
Okay, and thank you for bringing up the 1.4 million. I was gonna say that also. On page 25 again, you have a number 17 marked. It says native landscape restoration. There was another one that was a 15, I marked it here, and it was supposed to be like native, I thought it was talking about Native American or something.
Yeah.
But is that area, you're just talking about plants and stuff being native?
So we're, two things here. The area that was marked, number 17, that you're asking about, was shown in this location here. And so that was the idea for a native, specifically landscape, in terms of plant material restoration. The idea being that we could kind of recreate what the landscape was back in the Paleo-Indian era, or when, you know, when Spanish settlers first came here.
You're just talking about plants, you're not talking about buildings or something like that, okay.
But there was discussion, as we talked about before, about sort of a historic village or a step back in time where we could have maybe some structures and signage, and that was intended to be at this location here along the trail system. And so one is dealing more as a kind of outdoor, I would say, classroom experience or learning opportunity about specifically maybe Paleo-Indians in this area. The other is dealing with more of a landscape restoration.
Okay, thank you. The utility phase in your timeline, because we're having to work on utilities now, has that now risen to number one? And are we doing fully what we need to be doing?
Yeah, so first of all, like in the phasing that we're showing here, the numbers on the left all represent what we would maybe propose for consideration as an initial phase, but aren't necessarily chronological in terms of, you know, not necessarily that the utility upgrades are number 11 as compared to the gapping space, which is number 3. So the intent would be that this would all be maybe an initial phase. If this was to be, you know, the list became shorter, I think the utilities would definitely need to be on that short list because, as you know, there are maintenance issues right now with existing water and sewer, and we would need to upgrade those in order to facilitate the new building layout that Sweet Sparkman has come up with.
Okay,
so we would probably categorize that as one of the critical things that would need to happen first.
Exactly. Thank you.
So the number didn't imply level of importance in this case.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Carson.
Yeah, one simple thing in your presentation, it says that there was a change, the archaeological summary report. What exactly was that change?
So, yeah, the change, if I can go back up here, was really that within the revised summary report that was included in the agenda packet, as we were developing the master plan, they were looking at it and giving us feedback, and based on the master plan, they added some additional recommendations. They added these additional recommendations, and really that is kind of starts with number 4 here. Number 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, it's just about protection. It's not that you found anything new.
That's right.
Okay.
It's more about protection and making sure that we have a system in place to be able to address anything that might be unanticipated at this point, but we might encounter during construction or further design.
And then, what was the other thing? Heck if I know. Okay.
Is it?
Yeah, that's
Whoa,
it.
that was fast.
Yeah, well.
All right.
No, I'm not a real
any
fan
other
of
questions
this,
concerning the master plan?
I have a couple questions on the projected costs.
Okay, then let's move
Oh,
on.
I know what it was, sorry,
Go
real
ahead.
quick.
Yep, go ahead.
The Deer Prairie Creek thing, please look that over, because I do believe it does flank it. It is adjacent to it, and that creek does run into Deer Prairie Creek, so.
Okay.
The property.
Okay, we're going to move on. Vice Mayor, you had some more?
So I didn't catch that. about the 8-inch main going from Warm Mineral Springs down to 41. I don't remember that being, I thought the water was going to go along Triunfo, from where the hookup is along Triunfo to Warm Mineral Springs. Why are we extending water all the way down to 41 along Ortiz? That's county property.
That was based on discussions that Peter in our office, who did the utility kind of assessment and the civil engineering, had discussions with city staff about what would be the best way to kind of create this looped system. So by providing the 8-inch water connection that we see here along Triunfo to Grove and over to Ortiz, and then tying that back into US 41, that creates a loop for the water system, and so we don't have any dead ends, and that helps with water quality and just ensuring that we have good movement through there. Ty, I don't know if you want to add anything else. Ty Grimeau is one of our civil engineers as well, so if you have something to add on that.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ty Grimeau with Kimley Horn and Associates for the record. The intent of the loop, based on the coordination with the city staff, was that to provide adequate fire protection for the improvements in the future, you're going to need more than a single 8-inch line down Triunfo. And the 12-inch down to US 41 creates an adequate loop so that you'll have the fire pressure flows that you're going to need for fire suppression and safety, and then also good water quality for the use of that water. It provides a little bit of redundancy in the city's overall system.
Okay, so based on what you were explaining, this utilities infrastructure for $1.3 million, is that including it all the way down to 41? Or is that?
Yes, it was.
So maybe by the time the next meeting comes, can't we just loop along that one property that we do own that's in Northport at Triunfo and Ortiz, and then it goes that property right there? Would that constitute the loop that everybody's looking for? Because that is our property.
The loop really needs to be, the intent of it is that it's fed from two different directions. So you need to have the connection to 41 to achieve what you're.
Well,
there's some of those commercial properties along 41 that have been waiting for water for a very long time, and they are in the city of Northport.
This was a discussion that was with the utilities director. So if you need further clarification, we can get that from him. But this was based on his recommendation on how to approach it.
Okay, so maybe when we bring back the master plan for adoption, we can kind of clear up some of this, because this is the first that I've heard that it was going to go all the way down to 41. And then I'd also kind of like to know if the county is going to help, because they're going to benefit too.
When you bring that back, would you show which areas are county and which area are city on Ortiz? Because there is quite a bit that lies within the city along Ortiz toward Warm Mineral Springs. Thank you.
So then my next question is, there's, on this list is talking about lighting for the parking lot?
Right.
I don't think there's lighting there now, right?
I don't believe there is, and so, that's something that we proposed as an option. That's obviously something that could be scaled back or not provided, depending on what the final decision is. But we wanted to at least, give kind of thorough analysis of what could be provided and let you react to that and give us direction.
Because I can see if we're having a big event, renting lights for maybe 3, 4, 12 events is a heck of a lot cheaper than putting it in. I am also concerned with the cost of the rehabbing of the buildings. It more than almost doubled in some cases, and I know construction costs have gone up, but holy cow, that was an eye popper.
I think a couple of things just to consider relative, and John, feel free to jump in, but the costs that were done back in 16, yes, costs have gone up. Costs are going up every couple of months in many cases, but also the plan that those costs were based on at that time was really for fixing some elements that were failing. It did not include some of the building modifications and reprogramming and kitchen components like we're including in the proposed building plan at this point. So there are some additional elements that we've added in based on what we've heard during the community meetings and programming discussions that we've had.
I know that a lot of this is going to be phased. So it's not like, just for clarity, we're not spending $20 million the minute we approve this master plan. It's going to be phased based on.
That's one of the things that we're looking for tonight, is some direction on your priorities for the phasing. And then, of course, even if it's in the master plan that this is the approach we're going to take, it's still subject to available funding.
At some point, I guess we'll have to discuss priorities then. So that's all the questions I have now for projected costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carusone.
Oh, sorry. I never turned it off. I'm bad.
All right. So do we have no more questions?
She asked the one that I was going to ask.
Do we have a public comment? Go ahead and take the public comment on this.
Okay, and then we'll do the.
We'll discuss. Oh, this is on all of it?
Yep, they're all in order.
Louis Macri.
Thank you. I'll try to speak into the microphone so everybody can hear. When you started this project, I spoke to several of the commissioners, and I strongly recommended that you have a workshop including the master plan and any other alternative solutions that may be out there. And we can have a discussion, dialogue, and wrestle with the problem. You didn't have that. I know of two other alternatives out there. One of them happens to be mine. Okay, I've told you many, many times that I cannot debate or discuss anything here in 3 minutes when the opposing people can sit here and talk for 20 minutes and a half hour. I have a proposal that's counter, but it may be good, it may be bad, all right? My thought was to carve out the springs, which is 21 acres out of the 81 or so. That's what we have as an asset for the city of Northport. That is the valuable asset. Carve it out, try to privatize that, market it. All right? I've been to the workshops, I've been to your sessions. I can't talk in 3 minutes and cover everything, all right? But look at the privatization. I've said this to a couple of commissioners. Go out and see what the market is. There's a lot of money floating around in Europe and other places, and the economy in the U.S. is good. People are looking to invest here. And since you had 4 interpreters at one of your work sessions at the Springs, tells me that your market is Russia, Ukraine, Poland, and so forth, Eastern European, okay? I've also looked at all the financials. You don't know how to run a business, okay? You have marketing, $800 budgeted for marketing. You didn't spend a nickel, this is the city, okay? How do you bring in new business if you don't get out and market? Your revenue has gone decline over the last 3 years. I have the financials, okay? So, first off is to look and see if it's worth privatizing. If it's not, then you carve out the property and market and sell the property to commercial properties, businesses elsewhere, the other 61 acres. Then you turn around and you get an organization to run a business. You're not running a business. You don't even do an audit on the management company that does the cooking and so forth. When I asked that question, they looked at me. Okay, I understand you're doing an audit now, all right? So my point is, we should have a workshop where all 3 alternatives can be discussed in more detail and looked at pros and cons of each one. I hope you can all hear me.
Thank you, Mr. Macri. Mr. Sawyer.
Jim Sawyer, Nato Road, Northport. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Thank you for finally getting a plan together for Warm Mineral Springs. It's about 9 years overdue. We should have had it back in 2010 when we bought it. But anyway, with all the projects going on right now in the city, I'm not sure that we need everything that's on the master plan, draft master plan right now. We've committed $4.7 million to the Braves Spring Training Facility, $12 million for the Aqua Center, $40+ million for widening Price Boulevard, $6 million for the River Road, and a number of other projects, including sidewalks and roads rehabilitation. The renovations are long overdue, but particularly for the main building and for the cyclorama, and I don't have a problem with fixing up that area. That would probably, I don't know, run you about $6 to $8 million approximately. There may be a little bit more than that. Some of those costs could be adjusted, particularly for the furnishings and the parking lot, but I'm not sure. And I'm not sure why we need pavilions, because I thought when we built the Braves spring training facility was going to be used for outdoor events, concerts and outdoor events like that. I think we're going to be able to use that area there rather than having to build a pavilion somewhere else. Based on what I read, you've got about a $1.2 million revenue, $860,000 in cost, so you're making about $340,000 profit. I don't know if that's true of profit or not for the city, but at that rate, it'd take you about 20 years to pay back the $6 to $8 million project. Now, you may have other revenue coming in, like the surtax. You've got a surtax 1 and a surtax 2. Maybe some of that money's coming in here. If the money's there for the $19 million, fine. But I just think we really need to take a look at it and see if we really need to spend all $19 million. It may be closer to $8 million, 6 or $8 million, but it's the residents' money. Please just be real careful with it. And the only other thing I have is, and I think I read it in the minutes of a previous meeting last month, was concern about if somebody just wants to use the restaurant, they shouldn't have to pay a $20 entry fee to use the restaurant. They shouldn't have to pay a $20 entry fee to use the museum. I don't mind paying $5 to go to the cyclorama and look at a museum, but I don't want to have to pay $20 and then turn around and have to pay to go to the museum. We should have a separate entrance or wristbands or something. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gene Artemenko.
Good afternoon. My name is Gene Artemenko. I'm resident and homeowner on War Mineral Springs. I built the house because of this lake.
You can't hear him.
Can you speak up just a little bit, sir? We're having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, my name is Gene Artemenko. I am resident and homeowner on War Mineral Spring, and I built the house because of this lake over there. We're using this lake every day, and we already raised this question previously. I think it's not enough attention was for the environmental impact of all this project for the lake. The lake changed every year. Now it's became a little bit colder, different amount of minerals, I think, smell different, everything. Nobody checked the springs inside the lake. Nobody see the conditions. You're gonna put the $19 million for the project based on this lake, and you don't know for how long this lake and what condition of this lake, and how all these hundreds of thousands of people will impact on the environment of this lake. The second thing is the security. I didn't heard anything of improvement security. It's very soft target for any kind of crazy people. Open the fire for swimming people over there. No cameras, no monitoring, nothing. So it should be somewhere on your project. If you're going to build this, it's going to be pay attention for this. And the question is, I got will be lake closed for the construction, and how long is going to be construction? And of course, this gentleman already said about the different entries for different events, lake for lake. I'm going to use only lake. for $20. Other ones, other businesses over there. You should consider to keep the same prices for the admission price for this area, not increase because price already high, and we would like to keep this the same level. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Louise Hall? Huh? No? Oh. Juliet Jones?
Juliet Jones, War Mineral Springs. Well, I've been around here for a long time too, and I want to congratulate the commission. I think you're moving in exactly the right direction. You're using some foresight about creating this park and the whole chalice of nature around the springs. It's a very, very important thing. Right now we have a lot of open land in Northport, but this is important what you're doing, and I think it's I think you will be careful with the funds, and it's money well spent. I would like to add one thing. The gentleman was talking about an educational facility, and I've written you a letter. I had an idea, or rather my neighbor did. Wouldn't it be neat along that trail where you had the equestrian trail to be putting, set up a trail, and at the end of it have an old-fashioned schoolhouse, and the kind of yesteryear where they had to walk through nature to get to the school. And then you could have the educational components that you're talking about, archaeology, environment, past history. And kids could be bussed in from all over the county. They'd come from afar. And the whole idea of having it back there has to do with walking through an environment into a new world. Just like you walk through the tunnel to the springs into a new environment so you enjoy your day in the water. It's a replication of that. And think of the idea of, if we don't think so short-sightedly, 20 years from now, kids coming to that, they're going to bring what they see and learn back to their children. And you're going to have a constant feeding of the right kind of information about nature and the environment and the springs, and you're going to have that automatic. And plus, we're going to be doing something for our children, you know. So, but I really like the idea of the old-fashioned school and walking through the woods. I don't know how expensive it would be or how it could be constructed, but I think it would be money well spent. You can't put everything in terms of the Braves and whatever dollars. That's one type of an activity. This is a completely different thing, and very, very important, I think, to our culture here in Northport, because really there isn't a price anymore than you can put in the natural world. We're sitting at a time right now where finally, in Florida, people are beginning to wake up to the fact, because of the red tide and the algae, God, thank God we're landlocked if this keeps up, that people are beginning to notice that we have a water environment.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Huh? Oh, that's
Thank you,
it?
Ms. Jones.
Well, that's okay.
You did a great job. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
I was having fun.
Alan?
Commissioners, Alan Hale, Northport. I wanted to talk about something I'm starting to perceive, and that is that we have two opposing views coming almost in direct conflict with each other. One is of creating this master plan for human entertainment. There's a lot of features being offered that have no business being in a park. And I think the problem with that is that what some people's idea of a park is. And it's in direct opposition with the appreciation of a natural area which people go to experience epiphany. If I was throwing my chips in with creating a theme park sort of an idea or going with the natural area, I'll go with the natural area, because as the world becomes more complicated, people will crave the healing aspect that nature brings. I'm especially troubled by this amphitheater. These are things that are meant to project noise. That's why they're designed the way they are. If you build one of these things, you've got to justify using it now. And in every instance, in every town, just look down at Punta Gorda, the complaints start flying like clockwork when anybody starts cranking up the noise at night. And you can kiss the bird life goodbye. They're not going to hang around with this noise. They don't understand it. So what I perceive is that what we need to go with is keep in mind, let's keep the commercialism out of it. We already have facilities that can already operate as amphitheaters. We already have a concert hall. And keep the noise contained in where it should be. You did something a while back, and I think this is the way to go. When I say you, I mean the commission. You did a very welcome thing, and I know it made the job easier for you, and that is that you lost my thought. Just a second. You got rid of some aspects of the camping and the parking and running the RV parks, and by doing that, you pushed away those things which you saw early on didn't jive with your ideas, what the park should be. I suggest you do this, and the job will become simpler and simpler and simpler, and we'll get down to what we want to have, the essentials. But at every time there is a presentation, something has to be called. And I think it's this amphitheater.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. James Bonsky?
You just want to watch me back here so I don't fall down.
Better not fall.
Okay, my name's James Bonsky. I live in Northport. It's a great place to live. I would say good evening for the commissioners and the vice mayor and the mayor and all the other ones. It's been a long, long time since I've been standing here, but I just got to say something. If you're going to do everything you're saying going to say in the Springs, first of all, you got to do the road, make it wider, so people can go in and out of there. It's too narrow. You're going to get a lot of accidents, and a lot of people beeping the horn to get you out of the way. On the outdoor spaces, if you're going to have outdoor spaces, you should have them screened in. There's a lot of bugs in Florida, flying ones. People won't sit there, won't even take care of it. The other thing is, if you're going to rebuild buildings, check your cost of new ones too. Just don't say, go ahead and rebuild. Check the cost of the new ones too, because it's cheaper sometimes with new ones. Okay? And the last thing I have is I want to say that you guys are doing an excellent job. And anybody ever take the 50-gallon drums out of the St. Springs?
What? What did you say?
Didn't hear what you said.
Couldn't hear what you said.
The 50-gallon drums that's inside the springs. Anybody take them out yet?
I think they.
I haven't dove down that far yet. It's a long ways down.
Before you do that, make sure that you have somebody check it, see what's in before you bring them up, because they could explode. That's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Ms. Sandy, do you know what he's talking about?
I do not.
Okay. We can look into it. We can look into.
Yeah.
We can look into it. All right. Commissioner Luke?
They did some tie-ins and stuff in the very beginning. It's actually in the material. There's plastic down there and stuff that they sectioned things off as they were doing some of the discovery. Exactly, and it was to hold back while they were working and stuff. So a lot of it was used for weights and things like that. And it was left down there.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Carson.
I just want to kind of put it out there on the record that I do not support this. I think that what Ms. Jones had brought up is more of a creative thought process than what this is. I agree that this is a park. It was a park when I was a kid. I went there when I was a kid. They had lines and lines of folks going through those doors. The cyclorama was up and moving. You went outside, you saw the Indian huts, you saw all of the archaeological artifacts that wound up going to Little Salt Springs, if that tells you how old I am. But, you know, I remember it as clear as day. Those are the things that I tried to instill in my children, exactly as you said. You know, all those things that you learned from going there. I want to see us go back to that, but to enhance it even more. I want us to have that little schoolhouse that has all of those historical documentations from the city of Northport, and have the pictures that's sitting over here where they, you know, the woman whose name I cannot remember that jumped off with the horse, you know. Things like that need to be in some place, and to be creative about it by interacting with the nature, I think is a smart move. This is just blah, and it's not your fault. I think taking out the camping was a huge mistake, because that would have been your economic driver to support the maintaining of this area and building. I think taking out the marketing huts that was described to us was another big mistake, because once again, that would have supported things like building this school. It would have supported things like covering those holes in the grants that we receive in order to upgrade the current historical buildings. I think that we do not have this creative thinking and out-of-the-box thinking to see what could happen here, but yet keeping the environment and the archaeological properties sound, because there is a lot that could happen without hurting that property. There is nothing that says a floating cabin with floating walkways would hurt the environment. You're talking about 4 posts, I just built it. People going at the amphitheater, I am all for. By the way, I ride ATVs, and I can tell you, plenty of birds around me. You can pretty much feed a bluebird, a scrub jay, right off of an ATV. So I don't agree with that. I think it doesn't matter, the birds come. In fact, they usually have to put something to prevent them from landing in the amphitheater. But I just think we're putting ourselves in a box. And again, I'm going to repeat what I said in the last one. We save $1 to spend $10 down the road. And I think that we're just not doing this property justice. If we really want to make it a place where the city of Northport residents want to go, where people other than what are attending want to go, if we want to make sure that it's utilized, not at its maximum capacity, but utilized to the point where our children can appreciate the nature and the future, then I'm sorry, you need to make it more than what it is. Because our children want to camp, they want to ride their horses, and they want marketplaces. So I can't approve it the way it is.
Vice Mayor.
Well, I am surprised to hear your comments, Commissioner Carasone. I think that there's a lot that comes to this that is outside of the box. I love the idea of the little schoolhouse that our citizen had spoke about, and I am sure that if we give direction, we can incorporate that somewhere in here as another little attribute for further down the road. Love the idea of moving the maintenance building. I think by where the number 9 is, up by the community garden, would be a perfect spot because there's already a little road there, and then you can have easy access to it. It's out of the way. The lookout tower, there is nothing like that around, except if you go up to Myakka State Park. And I think that having something here that is free at this point, because we're not talking cost yet, will be a huge draw for something new and something different. I don't know what Commissioner Carasone was talking about little huts. I'm curious what that was about.
That was one of the pictures. It was something described.
Quincentennial.
Oh, okay. Well, we can always add something like that outside of the cyclorama and have like a little hut thing, but to just scrap this and start over, I don't think is the way to go. We spent a lot of time on this during the workshop, and I think there's a lot of attributes that will be done in phases. It's not going to happen all at once because we don't have the money all at once. But in phases, this is the master plan, the concept that future commissions are going to use as a starting point, as a springboard, and then build on it. So we can always add the schoolhouse to this master plan. We can have a little ancient area for, like fake digs or something like that, where you dig for archaeology as part of that schoolhouse thing. I don't know, but I like how it is. I like the plan. I like the naturalness. I like the serenity of it. We have where number 7 with that flexi space to do the, food truck rally or something like that. There is no amphitheater on this plan. I don't know where that came from, but there is no amphitheater.
Yeah, the open.
The event pavilion?
And that's a totally different thing than an amphitheater. A pavilion and an amphitheater are night and day. A pavilion is more of a large picnic area that's closed off. It's not loud. An amphitheater is definitely loud where they have concerts, and this is not the space to have ripping concerts every weekend. So I like this. I do have a few ideas of what we can add, and I've been keeping a list based on what the commission has been talking about. And thank you for your schoolhouse idea because it is a good one. Thank you.
Commissioner Luke?
Yeah, I actually had your idea put on my list to talk about, but when I saw you here, I'm like, yeah, I know she'll say something. Excellent idea. And it fits right into what Commissioner Carasone was talking about. It is that going back to nature, it is teaching, instructing the children. Absolutely. It's memories to be made that shows them something different than what they're going to obtain in the regular traditional classroom. And I think this plan does that. I think it sets forward the preservation and the respect to this area that it deserves. And I think it's going in the tiers that we have to because of the finances. I think we're going to come out with something very wonderful that generations, even after Commissioner Carasone and I are gone, we can leave a legacy. And this is our heritage. Warm Mineral Springs is our heritage, not just for our city, but for mankind. I mean, it's showing the traverse of the people coming over, through this land. So it is our heritage. And I love preserving it the way that we are for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I have no more speakers here. So I'll entertain a motion concerning direction on.
This is a presentation.
We have to talk about one more thing, though, Mayor. We have to talk about the phasing recommendations.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the direction on like the priorities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
we didn't
exactly
talk about that amongst us.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let's, okay, that's what you're saying. Yeah, let's get to that.
All right, so I don't know, whoever wants to go
Vice
first.
Mayor, you're already talking.
Well, obviously, I think, in my opinion, the buildings are first along with the infrastructure for water and sewer. That is a no-brainer, because we do have to do something within that 20 acres of the Springs area. So outside of the Springs, the buildings, the cyclorama, outside of that, including that infrastructure for water and sewer, I think the lookout tower should be one of the first things, because that, to me, is going to be a very large draw to get people to come to the Springs area outside of going in the water. I think it will give a whole new perspective of what this area can offer. It gives the bird's eye view. We've got the water view, we got the bird's eye view. And then I think working that in tandem with the trail, maybe not all the trails, but some of the trails. And then everything else will fall as far as financing goes. The pavilions and restrooms. I mean, it kind of will all fall into place as we pick, this is the next part, this is the next part. And it depends on the money part of it too, I think. But I'd like to see the lookout tower and the trails be one of the first top priorities after the buildings and infrastructure. That's my take.
Commissioner Emmerich?
Commissioner McDowell, in your buildings and, you're setting up your priorities for the buildings and the infrastructure, are you including the parking before the tower? Is the parking going to be included with those buildings?
Well,
because they have it listed separately.
I think they have 50 spaces now for parking, and then there's plenty of grass overflow parking. I don't know if we need to have more asphalt parking at this point. Again, that's probably something that will dictate when the need is there.
Okay, that's why, I just wanted clarification on how you were looking at that, that's all.
Yeah, because there's a lot of grass parking that's available, so.
That's all I wanted to know, thank you.
Anybody else?
If that's a consensus.
Well, that's what I was going to.
If that's a consensus, I'll say yes.
Yeah, I have no problem. To me, caring for what we have existing now is priority. We have let it go too far, too long. And so I think the restoration and the utilities, the infrastructure is paramount. After that, then you want the enhancements over on the other side, the trails, the parking, the things that they would utilize over there comes after that, in my opinion.
Vice Mayor, do you want to make a motion towards your phasing?
Sure. I can, do we want to?
Yeah, because this is a presentation, it's not an agenda item.
But we're
looking for direction, so we can
So we
give
can
that.
do a consensus.
Make a motion, it's guaranteed on paper.
Can we make a motion on a presentation? I was under the understanding at previous presentations that we couldn't act on it because it was a presentation, thus we couldn't make motions.
My understanding is that we would bring this back as an agenda item with the changes discussed today for approval.
Thank you.
So I would say,
And there is a consensus, not a motion.
I'm not sure, Michael.
I can't hear
I
Mr.
agree. I
Bell
don't
when
think
he's
you need a
talking the other
motion.
direction.
I don't think you need a motion to bring it back. I think what was discussed today was documented, and I think maybe an action of bring back the changes to, for an
That's
agenda
when all the talk,
item.
then you have it. You have it. All right, we have a motion. Okay, so do I have a consensus? Do you want to state yours? Because you had the buildings, trail, tower, and parking as a.
Buildings, utility infrastructure, and tower as the top three buildings and infrastructure is 1 and 2 together, so you can't really say 1 and 2. And then the tower and trails. And I'd be a yes on that.
Do you add the schoolhouse to the mix?
Well, I thought
Not
we
in
were just talking
priority.
about priorities.
We're just talking priorities.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, yes.
Buildings, utility, infrastructure, tower, and trails.
Yes, yes.
I already said
I'm
yes.
good, yes, yes. Okay, so there you go. You have a unanimous consensus.
Do we want to get a consensus to have them add the little schoolhouse/lifestyle component to the master plan?
We can ask.
And move the maintenance building.
Yeah, nothing.
If I may, we would like consensus on anything you would like changed,
Yeah.
removed, added.
Do you want to get consensus to have them add the little schoolhouse with lifestyle component?
What do you mean by lifestyle component?
You know, like the little huts, the little dig, the little, what was in the various different activities and stuff?
Historical components and educational components.
Yeah, I think the whole concept is it's educational, historical, right? Do I have a consensus for that?
Yeah.
And it's yes, 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 yes.
I like
Okay,
that
so that
idea,
is
I'm
unanimous.
sorry. I think that's.
Unanimous on the schoolhouse with the historical and educational activities kind of take.
So do you want to get a consensus, Mayor, to have them move the maintenance building towards the back by the community gardens where the restroom is, in that general area-ish?
That was a no-brainer. I'm a yes on that.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's a unanimous consensus also.
All right, do you want to get a consensus to have them bring back information about the utilities looping to 41 and showing the Northport properties versus Sarasota County property ownership?
Down the line.
I don't care.
Yep, okay.
Yes.
Yes, yes. I'm okay with anything that gets information, we're good.
Do you want to get a consensus to have them check page 8? And that, when I say page 8,
Oh, yeah.
that was about the drainage canal, the creek, and running adjacent to and checking that wording in the actual document.
Are we good? Down? Yes, 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 okay. That's unanimous.
And I think the last one I have written down on my notes is to get a consensus to check the parking that is near the flexi space, to make sure that it's a safety
Is there a way
thing.
to have patrons go from the parking lot to that, and then what's the activity there, so there's a safety zone?
Exactly.
Oh, I got you.
What about, but what you said
But that's
earlier,
next.
the bus loop?
I'm gonna talk
Because
about
it
that.
doesn't,
So do I have a consensus on the safety
Yes.
zone? Yes, that's unanimous.
The last one I have on my notes is about the bus loop, where the entrance location, to make it so that it's less turns for a bus. I don't know. I think you understand what that's about, so.
I think an engineer needs to review that and make sure that there's enough room for a safe turnaround on a bus, because it doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what, the foot is, the distance is, so it's hard to tell on a plan,
We will look into that. Thank you.
Mr. Emmett, you
Yes
good?
on that?
Yes, sir. Yes, Vanessa?
Yeah.
Deal? Okay, it's unanimous.
I think I got everything, but if anybody else caught something else I may have missed, please.
Okay.
Oh, check the drums.
Check the drums?
Yeah, the drums at the bottom of the pond.
Okay.
Debris on the bottom of the springs.
Yeah.
Have the staff
You
look
need to
into
have
the
somebody-
drums and other debris left at the bottom of the springs?
I would just, can we look into if anything is still there?
That won't be a part of this?
Exactly, that should be something
Yeah,
different.
something
Yes.
separate, just let us
Gonna
know what's
need
going on.
University of Miami to do a dive or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can just do the research, see what is there first, and then make that decision on whether or not we need to hire.
Yeah, we would need to bring that back because
Yeah.
there's no diving there.
Right.
So we would need approval for that.
Obviously, we have a citizen that knows all about it, maybe get with him.
Go there.
Snorkel.
I've done that before.
So that's a little deep.
So I'm a yes on that.
Yes. So, Ms. Luke, you good? Are you yes on just having them look at that? That's all
Yeah,
right.
because we have an ordinance that says no diving, can't take anything out, can't put anything in. So even to tackle something like that, it would probably have to come before this board
right.
for us to make an exception, so, yeah, so just information to
looking
come
into the
back to see
information.
if we may be curious to do something.
And I
You
have
might
to-
you might be able to, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Commissioner. You might be able to get a hold of SCF, USF, any of the local universities that are having a scientific work group. Actually, New College up there, they have a dive team. They might be willing to do it down here as part of their classroom and free of charge. So that's a way to do it without.
Steve Kosky will know why and when it was there. So.
Yeah, we'd still have to give the exception, but yeah, it wouldn't.
I know,
cost.
but at least those are avenues that you would have to look into to find out if we can
Well,
get them in
the
here,
backup
liability
material-
and.
The backup material from Sonny, he describes what they did and why they laid it out that way, the Sonny cocktail.
All right.
Mayor, I have to say, this was a great discussion with the board and the citizens' input and staff, and thank you very much. I just had to say it. Great job, everyone.
Let's move on to funding.
Y'all did a
Ready to
beautiful
move on to
job.
funding?
Thank you.
On the
Funding?
aspect? Didn't you want to talk about the budgeting?
We already did, I thought.
By
What are you talking about?
prioritizing.
Oh, by
yeah.
prioritizing. All right, I see what you're saying. All right, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will take a 15-minute break.
Yeah, 'cause
Because if
it's
I said 10,
quarter
it'll be 15.
10.
So now you say 15, it'll be 20?
2 hours.
Good job, guys, thank you. It's quarter to 8 on.
Yeah, the rest of you. say quorum here. When I rap the gavel, I lose my quorum.
Just like that, it's over.
It's over. Game over. Game over. I just said I had quorum and rapped the gavel, and then there you go.
You do.
There you go.
Well, I don't all the time obey you.
So far, so
You know, I can see that, don't you?
Imagine.
All right. All right, we are ready to get started again. We're moving on to presentation item B. Deputy Chief Chris Morales will be updating us on body-worn cameras and implementation proposal. City Manager.
Yes, Mayor, exactly what you said. There will be a presentation on an updated report on the body-worn cameras and implementation proposal. We will also be discussing further on tonight the budget amendment associated with this conversation. And we will be bringing back the agreement to you at a following commission. Chris, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morales.
Thank you. Deputy Chief Chris Morales, Northport Police. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission. It's an honor to stand in front of you guys all today for the presentation and proposal of body-worn camera implementation for the Northport Police Department. Just to fast forward, just so you know, that this PowerPoint presentation was kicked back by the City Manager, Peter Lear, because he did not like the pictures I had in front of me. He wanted Northport Police Department's body-worn camera pictures on here, so I had to go back and implement. Those are actually our officers. Nice. With the body-worn camera. That was just kind of, he wanted our officers, our department in it, which I totally didn't think about, but he was absolutely right.
You cut their heads off.
Yes, we did. We did. Protect the
undercover.
Just to, Commission, just to fast forward a little bit to get everyone up to speed of where we've begun with this journey in this program and where we're at today. So back on June 7, 2018, staff had presented to Commission research and recommendations on a body-worn camera. We presented the history of the body-worn camera program. We provided a SWOT analysis, which was, of course, you guys all remember the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the body-worn camera. And we proposed an estimated cost at that time for the equipment, personnel, storage, both local and cloud-based. Moving forward with the direction of Commission, staff had created a body-worn camera implementation team. That first meeting was held on July 16, 2018. As you can see, our chief was very proud on posting on his Twitter account, which I have no clue how to work, that we were moving forward and it was going nicely. Team selected to pursue one vendor at that time, and that was Axon, who, by the way, I'd like to add that this is not a one-man show, obviously, taking on this venture, so I brought some top guns with me here, some staff there with me today, obviously Chief Garrison, who's behind me, but Commander Mike Bote, who oversees our IT department, our IT manager, Reg Drapo, and believe it or not, Axon's here. They brought their top gun, who's the director of sales for the entire East Coast of the United States.
All right, we're impressed now.
Yes, so if I don't have all the answers, I promise you, Commission, the team here will be able to answer your questions. Moving forward, we created a Northport Police Department policy for body-worn cameras. Our city attorney reviewed our body-worn camera policy. As well as the Florida Police Chiefs Association, their attorney also reviewed the same policy. So we had more than one eyes on for attorneys looking over our policy. Commission approved the agreement with Axon for a field trial on the body-worn camera on November 5th, 2018. And on November 20th, 2018, Axon provided training to our officers and support staff that were assigned to the testing and evaluation of the body-worn camera program. I would also like to add that was not included in this body-worn camera for the process. This month, believe it or not, on February 11th, the city police department, city staff met with the PBA union on some impact bargaining regarding the body-worn camera program, and we had great dialogue with the union, made some recommendations and some suggestions on the policy that's being brought forward, but we had great dialogue with the union president who was there, and we are continuing moving forward. Which they, of course, as you know, the PBA is in support of the body-worn camera program. Body-worn camera, the test and evaluation on November 28th, 2018. At 6 a.m. we launched the body-worn cameras. It consisted of 10 body-worn cameras deployed, 2 officers per shift. We have 4 shifts, including both our canine handlers. This just kind of gives you an idea of the amount, just using 10 officers of the amount of video, the hours, and the storage, which we'll go through here. As you can see out here, there was about a total of 348 hours of video, an average of 5.37 hours per officer of body-worn camera per shift upload. So that's only 2 officers on a shift. We have 13 man squads, including the sergeants. That's 15. Okay, so it just gives you an idea a little bit of the amount of storage that this will take. Next is kind of gives you an idea or perspective of how our officers, it's called tagging, and what goes on with this self-tagging, depending on the certain time or certain crime or incident, there's retention laws, there are retention schedules behind each category. So for instance, a felony is automatic if someone tags that camera video, a felony status, it's automatic at minimum 3 years of the storage you would have to hold. So capital case is life. So all of these have retention behind that our record staff would monitor and make sure that we meet the retention laws under 119. Part of the agreement we are with Axon is it's called the Officer Safety Plan, which you'll be seeing this contract agreement coming forth to you on March 5th for approval. But just to give you a little perspective, overall view of what this contract includes, and it's just more than just the body camera. And this is what we're going to talk that Axon provides. They're going to be giving us two cameras, 2 body-worn cameras per officer. So right now we have there'll be 84 body cameras deployed. We'll speak about that a little later, but they're going to give us 2 body cameras per officer. That way, if our officers end the shift, they dock their camera at the end of their shift at the station. They still have another one if they're heading home and something happens, they can still engage and have another camera on them. So we want cameras on our officers at all times. This was Axon working with us to provide the 2 camera feature. As technology advances, I believe with Axon, that'll probably go away, where the actual body camera itself is uploading automatically. But that's in future testing with Axon. With this 5-year contract agreement with Axon, every 2.5 years, all the officers get brand new body-worn cameras, keeping up with the latest and greatest of generation of body-worn cameras. Because as you all know, technology advances daily, just like our cell phones. As I explained to you all, they're constantly upgrading and advancing. As a matter of fact, I believe Axon's getting ready to launch their newest generation here in the end of October. And we will be getting that, I think it's Body 3, is that correct? We will be getting that on top of the 2.5-year replacement. So they're willing to give us that newest generation here at the end of this year. They'll also be providing us 8 spares, body-worn cameras. Unlimited evidence through evidence.com. So our storage, we have unlimited data storage. So no matter how much we store, we don't have to worry about overage or usage of storing. It's never going to be an issue. There's an evidence.com mobile app. With this, everyone will have access, the officers will have access to be able to take photos from their work cell phone numbers through the app of Axon, or evidence.com. They can take photos from the crime scene. They can do audio interviews with suspects and witnesses and victims right on scene, hit the button, put the case number, and it submits it right to evidence without having to go back, to the interview room at the station, without having to submit evidence back at the station. They can do it right here from the phone, which is a great feature. Also, it comes with Axon Records Management and Axon Redactions Assistant, which is a great tool to have. It does all the redaction that's built into the system. And it comes with the Axon Sidearm. And what Axon Sidearm, what that is basically, I went over with you all on the the threats and weaknesses. One of those was human factors. And human factors is officers can forget to turn on their body-worn cameras. And at the spur of the moment or that heat of the time that they're reacting on something, their adrenaline's pumped, they have to quickly act. If they have to go to their sidearm to engage on something, the last thing they're thinking about is activating their body-worn camera. When they pull their firearm out, it triggers their body-worn camera. There's a triggering switch through Wi-Fi capabilities, and it activates. It's a great feature. Again, Axon really looks at how do they take away and minimize human factor errors. So that's one of the features that we'll be getting. And that's one of the newest releases they have is that sidearm single. Also with the officer safety program, all sworn members of the police department will be going to what's called the new TASER 7. It's Axon, of course, is a part of TASER, sister company. They work in conjunction, but we'll be going to the TASER 7 platform. This is the newest and latest, greatest generation of their tasers. They're phasing out these current tasers that we have us on. They're not putting any more research into them, and they're going now into this new TASER 7 platform. With that, they give us unlimited duty cartridges, 3 training cartridges per officer per year, the signal activation for body-worn cameras, same thing with the sidearm. The officer has to go to the taser, and he pulls his taser out and turns it on. It triggers the body-worn camera. If it's not on already, it'll make sure it's on. Again, that's just another human factor that's there as a backup. Evidence.com data storage, docking stations, 5-year warranty. The great thing about this program with Axon is all equipment is warranted throughout the contract. Again, but we get the 5-year warranty with the tasers, 4 spare tasers for the TASER 7s on hand. The average yearly cost to replace tasers and to purchase duty cartridges, training cartridges, and batteries is approximately $32,340 a year. It varies. This year we had about 20,000 replaced tasers. Or you want to equivalent that over the course of 5 years is $161,700. This is kind of an overview of the cost over the 5 years of if we were to take on the Axon 5-year agreement. That would also include additional staffing. As you see, the first year with Axon, which Axon goes year to year. So if we were to start with Axon, it will be April of this year and would end in April of 2024. The reason why you're seeing $94,927 is because for this budget amendment for this fiscal year from April to September is 6 months. So that's the cost for 6 months until the next fiscal year. And then we will be paying that full year of what it will cost throughout the contract. As you know, my research paper that provided staff will need to have a training officer and a records tech and an IT tech. We have deferred the training officer and records tech until now, and we'll be requesting that in the next fiscal year. But for sustainability of taking on this program, staff has identified that we would definitely need a training officer and a records tech to be added to this program. We stood fast and strong on keeping an IT tech in to go with the program if implemented, because the amount of equipment that is going to be coming on hand through our test and evaluation, there were some minor technical issues that were quickly addressed, but however, IT was there and they were able to work with Axon to adjust. So having an IT to oversee this amount of equipment is paramount to us, and Chief stood fast with staff and recommended that the IT come with the implementation of the body-worn camera program, beginning now if we were to approve it. What you see over the courses of years 2019 through 2024 is adding the training officers startup fee for an officer to start up with a vehicle, IT and records, and then of course what you're seeing the increases over the years is a projected salaries increase. What we basically did is the increases that we've done for this year, we use those across for the 4 years. You'll see an internet upgrade below. Some of the infrastructure we will have to add in our department, which for IT can hear discuss, but we plan on using for that first year that you see in NA there, we won't need all the 12,600, but we'll be utilizing the, if approved, the money that we would be saving, the 20,000 for the cameras or the tasers. We would put that towards the internet upgrade, some one-time expenditures for equipment that we'll need to support the equipment that will be stored at our police department for the Axon equipment. So we were able to use that money to minimize the impact for the budget amendment on Axon. So a lot of it's the one-time, but the one-time expenditures, but what will be reoccurring is that 12,600 a year for that extra internet line. Part of the contract, Axon will come down with their team and provide training to all officers and support staff prior to implementation. And if approved, with the approval process that is coming forward to you all right now, we could see deployment occur in April. Officers and supervisors to be issued body-worn cameras. So the supervisors would all fall under these categories, would also be wearing the body-worn cameras, would be patrol, canine, traffic, special enforcement team, and our school resource officers. Questions?
I'm about to tell you, you're about to go over. Great job.
Thank you.
You have a minute left. Is there anything else you'd like to say in that last minute? No? All right. I just have one question concerning the sidearm feature.
Sure.
You know, that when you pull a gun, it turns it on. Obviously, anytime you can have that on during a situation like that, I think it's better than not. But by the time you pull the weapon, is it almost, I mean, you've missed so much dialogue or so much going on between the time you pull the gun. You
Sure.
missed that entire story of why that happened.
Again, one of the features that Axon has is when you pull your firearm, it has, it's called a buffering. So when you activate it, it goes back to create, the settings can go 30, 60, or 90 seconds back of recording.
So it's always kind of
It's
on?
looping. It's recording and then it's erasing after what you set it at.
That's good.
So when they pull it, it'll go back 30 seconds of that recording, whatever it was, and it'll capture just the video, not the audio.
Right, so you can at least
And
see
then
it.
when the audio will kick in right at that moment that it was triggered, the audio would start.
Because I was wondering maybe there was something like, like when you have to get out of the vehicle.
Yeah.
There could be a trigger or something, but that makes sense. Okay, thanks.
But we would set those bufferings, and right now we had the buffering set with our training at 30 seconds. So as everyone has the body-worn camera on, every 30 seconds it's recording, and every 30 seconds is erasing. It's looping.
Oh, all right.
Does
So
that
it is
make sense?
always running.
It's running, but it's not recording to where it's storing, it's capturing and holding it.
Until you pull the weapon.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Carson.
So the body cameras would only record when you pull the weapon?
No. That's just one, it's called a trigger. That's one trigger feature. Body-worn cameras is activated on magnitude of things. It could be your overhead lights we
Okay.
could add,
All
your
right.
door.
I was just
So it's
worried that,
anything.
yeah.
It's anything that you can Bluetooth to.
They allow us up to like 5 triggers? 8 triggers that we could set. We could later purchase down the road that the chief could say, you know what? I want to add this feature where if I guys activate our overhead lights, it automatically turns on. Right now, our policy's set to when our officers are dispatched a call. The moment they're dispatched or receive a call on the radio, they're to activate their body-worn camera. It's a muscle memory, so that way they're focused. They don't have to worry about turning on. They don't have to get tunnel vision or sidetracked when they get to the scene. It's just a muscle memory. And how we've learned that is through other agencies learning and adjusting that.
Just creating the policy.
Correct.
That's what I was going to ask, is the policy is to turn them on once a call is activated?
Correct.
Okay. And so do they have the capability of taking them off and putting them in a front seat or something?
Can they take off the camera? They have the capability of doing that, yes.
Okay, is that part of the policy?
No.
Okay. And that'll be in the policy that they can't, they go to search a vehicle, they take it off and just
No.
drop it somewhere?
No. It will not.
Okay. Because I've seen that. It wasn't this department.
Okay, yeah.
But I've seen
no.
it.
Understood. That's not in our policy, no ma'am.
Okay. That's it.
Commissioner Luke.
Curious question. The position on the officer, if he does have to pull, it comes on, and if he goes like this, is the video blocking because of the position of his arm?
It depends, and the answer is yes, it could. It depends where the officer puts it. We try to put it at center chest.
Right.
So when they do come to it, that they do see it, but that, as you can see, there's many videos out there where people have center chest, and sometimes that does block the view a little bit, but you still get a perspective of what was transpiring, what was going on before he pulled it and went and fired the shots or pulled it and draw his weapon forward. But yes, that is an issue. But throughout research with the body-worn cameras, they found that they have point of views, which the most optimal, Commissioner, is getting it as close to your eyes as you can. So what you
Right.
see and where you turn is where. But technology now and with Axon and other developers, sometimes there's been where wires are pulled, something can get pulled when those become issues, that everyone reverts back to the simplicity of the center chest camera. And I'm sure Kevin can speak here on that on behalf of that centerpiece where you see a lot of agencies go to. But yes, that is, you do see that at times, depending on how the officer places.
But you don't send really one officer out. You have two officers, so somebody else could potentially be recording when another one might be drawn?
You know, Commissioner, I could say absolutely yes, but there's been times where sometimes our officers are by themselves and they have to act and their backup is not there because of the circumstances in front of them that they engage.
It doesn't take that long. I mean, it's just going to be momentary that
yes, Commissioner.
You do. Okay, thank you. I was curious about that. The training officer?
Yes.
I am not remembering that one being discussed. Can you tell me what and why, you know, what they do, and then why that first year is more money than the subsequent years?
The first year, the reason for the first year is the full startup of a police officer. That's with a vehicle. So the vehicle's averaging around with the equipment installed around 50,000. So that's why you're seeing that spike up. That's including the vehicle. The second reason for the training unit, and speaking with our local city of Fort Myers and city of Cape Coral, one of them they stress is that they have their training unit oversee the body-worn camera program with their officers working in conjunction with Axon, the training, sometimes you have to switch out the cameras to a different officer. Not all of our officers are going to have body-worn cameras.
That was my next question.
84 will be deployed, which is all those I just showed you in the PowerPoint here, back up. Our detectives will not have them. Our training unit will not have them. But our detectives in the training unit, if they were to take a detail or go to the road, they would have those available to them. The training unit would have to go back because we don't give everyone licenses to go back and manually assign them in there. That's just one component. The second one is the tasers. Taking on the tasers now, this new generation of the tasers that Axon's coming out with, assigning the taser to the person, the cartridges now are scanned. So talk about sharing, we try to save money in sharing tasers with other officers. It's really difficult now because now they're assigning the actual cartridges, scanning, and the actual taser itself to the officer. It's more of like a chain of custody. Can you do it? Yes. Is it time consuming? Absolutely, to try to switch officers back and forth. So having a training unit designated to the taser program and the body-worn camera takes on, it's a lot. And hearing that from both our neighbors, Fort Myers Police Department and Cape Coral, who both have Axon, strongly recommend and suggest that both their training departments. So that's where that came from.
They just focus on.
And it's constant.
And it alleviates you guys.
Yes.
Okay. And you answered that question. I think the IT, you said that was for an extra line of internet?
Yes.
And that is $12,600 a year to operate that single line of access?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That ends mine.
Earlier, you had said on the cameras that they would be replaced every 2.5 years?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, when we went to the tasers, they said that they had a 5-year warranty. Do they get replaced in 2.5 years as well, or they're just one shot for 5 years?
Generally, Commissioner, they're just one shot for 5 years, the ones that we carry on. As you've been seeing in our previous budgets every year that we're doing that 20,000 replacement every year, that's replacing 20 cameras or 20 tasers per year, which is a 5-year replacement schedule. A taser now is anywhere from $1,000 to $1,300 with the holster. So we were getting 20 tasers a year replacing those cycle. So but now with the 5 years under warranty, we would keep those tasers. If we were to probably get, I don't know, Kevin, if we were to go continue a new 5-year contract, would we get new tasers?
That would be something that you would talk about with Georgia, the
Okay.
CW rep, but not included in this plan. It's the replacement body, one camera, and one taser.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Thank you for meeting with me. You answered a lot of my questions, and then your presentation just confirmed and for the record kind of stuff,
Yes, ma'am.
especially with that 84,000 versus what was in the presentation for the 189,000. So thank you
Yes.
for that. Police union contract for PBA. Does that contract need to be reopened or renegotiated now that we're adding body cameras?
No, ma'am. Again, part of the impact bargaining was having that dialect, and they pretty much, and again, with great partnership, they just recommended some suggestions on, making sure the officers when to activate, looking out for the interest of course, the city and the officers on the policy, making sure there's clarity in the procedures on the body worn camera.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes.
The software for the body-worn cameras, is the software compatible with the city's existing software or hardware?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Sure about that?
I got the team right here if they would like to come up and ask, but
Nope.
but they're not moving, so they agree. Yes.
Okay. CGIS compliant, FDLE compliant, Leo compliant, all those little agencies, everybody's weighed in, everything's good?
My command staff is nodding their head, and I'm nodding with them. Yes.
Oh, they're awesome.
Yes, they are. They're
So-
quiet too.
You said if I'm an officer and I forgot to trigger when I got dispatched, I didn't start my body camera when I got dispatched, and I get to the scene, my camera's not on.
Correct.
And then I have to go and pull my weapon.
Yes.
You're saying it can loop back 30 seconds?
Yep.
How? It wasn't on?
So we turn the body worn cameras on. You have a switch for it to on. There's 2 steps with the body worn camera. Turn it on, it's on. When you push the button, you push it twice, it activates to recording. So recording is meaning storing. Now it's recording to store. Okay. So once it's recording, you activate the recording feature on it. You can't take it off the body worn camera. Once something's recording, it's staying on there. And if you hold it down twice, it shuts off. If you were to pull your taser out, and I didn't forget to do that, the double tap, it will activate the body camera and it will go back 30 seconds. So this body camera being on, Commissioner, will loop. It has its self-internal recording in itself. It's capturing what you're doing, and then every 30 seconds, it's erasing it and starting with the current. It's just
If it's
looping.
not on, how does it, if it's not on, because I forgot to do that, how does it record?
It's secret.
I'll probably I'll ask Axon here to explain that one. So
Secret information that I'm trying to get it.
I'll ask Kevin Russell to explain that to Axon.
I'm Kevin Russell, Director of Sales for the East Coast. Thank you very much for having me. Can you repeat the question?
Okay, so I forgot to double tap to turn
Yeah.
on my camera. I get dispatched, it's not on. I get to the scene, it's not on. I pull out either my taser or weapon, and it automatically turns it on, but then goes back 30 seconds?
So I think where the confusion is the camera is always on from the moment that the officer begins their shift. Think of it as on.
Right.
So the camera's on, but it's not recording. So you're thinking of on as recording. On is always on, and then if they don't hit the recording, then when you hit the recording, then it'll go back and capture the 30 seconds prior, and then you'll have the video. So they don't actually have to physically turn the device on. They do that once when they start the shift and once when they end their shift. And it's
There
always
any-
on, but then recording and not recording is gonna be policy.
Any possibility that they'll forget to turn the switch to on?
I would say there's always
that
always the possibility, but it's going to be the 2 things we always say are policy and configurable. Like our system's very configurable, and it's configurable to how the policy is written for you guys and for the officer. So yes, they could, but it's going to be second nature. It's going to be like putting on their duty belt. It's going to be activating their camera.
To answer that, Commissioner, part of the policy would be is every shift, there's shift inspection, staff inspections. They test their tasers just like we do our self-arc. It's called self-arcing testing. Make sure your taser works properly, and they'll be making sure that their body camera is activated before they hit the streets. That's why they leave it on.
Thank you for that clarification of on and recording, so thank you for that. No further questions. I'm so excited.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I don't have anything else.
I'm good.
Do we,
All right. I do believe we have something coming up during the public hearings. Oh, I do have a public comment, though. I can't read it. Oh, yeah, Jim Bonsky, yeah, sorry.
gonna hold me up again. Good evening again. I have a question. How long does it stay on record? Does
On
it stay on for
record?
an hour, half hour, 20 minutes, 5 minutes?
As long as the officer keeps it on until he shuts it off manually.
What if he doesn't shut it off? How long would it go?
It could record, it could hold a battery life, it could record up to 15 hours?
Yeah, so it's 12 hours battery life, but that also is 12 hours of recording. We say 12 plus hours because we don't want to commit to anything more, but we see it go up to 14. So that it can actually not even be on, it can also be recorded for that whole 12 hours.
I'm 100% for the cameras, but if the economy goes south, don't let the people, the policemen, retire them. Don't do that.
I agree.
Take the cameras out instead of the men and the women. If you see on their badges right now, strap on it. I'm afraid of these guys every day when they go out. So, just make sure you don't throw them out.
Thank you, Mr. Vronsky.
Thank you.
Mayor, do we need a consensus to have them bring back the agreement?
I think that's already on the agenda.
No, it's coming back
It's
on
on the agenda
March
back
5th.
here. It's in the public hearings, that's why I was just wondering.
No, the agreement for the
Agreement's
body
coming
cam.
back, what, March 5th?
March 5th.
March 5th, it's already gonna be on the agenda.
Oh, okay, I was thinking about the budget amendment. Okay, thank you. I think we're
Good
good for now.
job, Chris.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to consent agenda. Ms. Carey, did I have any requests to pull any consent items as of noon yesterday?
Yes, Mayor, the clerk is requesting item B to be pulled. We were also notified of the intent to pull items C and D. So the question is, does the board still want them pulled?
Wait. The clerk wants which one?
The clerk wants B, the approval of
B.
minutes.
Her B or just part of B?
Entire B.
I think we need to pull all of B just to address the January 22nd minutes.
Okay.
The others are fine.
Okay, and then we
Okay.
have a request for C and D.
An intent, right, so I would just,
Yep. So do I have a motion that will approve the consent agenda pulling B, C, and D?
So move.
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke,
Second.
seconded by the Vice Mayor. Let's take a vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, so moving on to item B, pulling of the minutes. Miss Katie.
Thank you. The minutes for January 22nd was item 6D, where we were reading the second reading of ordinance 2018-63. And in the motion, it was stated that we were approving ordinance number 2018-36. So I would
Oh, yeah,
like,
those were switched.
it was just an inverting of the numbers, but I would like direction from the board to make the correction to the minutes before we have them
Do you just need
approved and
direction, or do we
signed.
need a motion for that?
I would prefer
A motion?
So it should be 63 or it should be?
63. We had heard item
I
2018-36,
think we
like two
discussed
items
that day
prior.
when it pulled out.
did do that. Yeah, that was a dyslexic moment. Yes, I remember that.
Yes, we did discuss it then, but we didn't actually talk about pulling it and changing.
I thought we fixed it at the meeting. No?
I had a verbatim done of the motion, and it does say 2018-36, but we were on item 2018-63.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Make a motion to change the minutes to reflect 2018-63.
Thank you.
Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Liu. Let's take a vote. Nobody has anything to say.
Can we approve B with the change? Can we approve B with the change?
We just did, didn't we?
No, we just focused
No,
on that
no,
one.
you just
focused on that one, so
focused
now we
on
have
it.
to.
Each one, yeah.
Now we need
I
to
see what you're
do
saying, yeah.
all of B with changes.
Go ahead. Yes.
All of B,
with the change?
well,
Okay,
change.
second.
Okay. Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Liu. Take the vote.
Boy, our chamber's emptied out. What's up with that?
They got scared with the body worn cameras.
Sorry, I thought
They got
I...
out of here. That passes unanimously. Moving on to item C. Approve a 7-year preventative maintenance and repair service agreement with Stryker Medical. City Manager, Assistant City Manager Branco.
Okay, we'll have Chief Titus to come up to discuss and answer any questions on item C.
Thank you. Scott Titus, Fire Chief for the record. Sure what the question was. It was, somebody requested this to be pulled. Who requested
Was
this?
it me?
Wasn't that me?
Was it me?
Not it.
Not me.
Okay, well then can we, then if there's nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve consent item C.
We got a motion on the floor by
Second.
Jill Luke, seconded by the Vice Mayor. I just want to say, that was the best answer you've ever given.
Get an A for
Stop
the
talking,
day.
don't ruin this. Let's take the vote.
It's just to make sure you stayed till the end.
That's it.
Oh.
I'm always here at the end with you all.
That passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to item D. Assistant City Manager Branco.
Again, just received this notice for item D to be pulled. So this is having Chief Titus, this is on the mobile radios.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
I'm the one that asked to have this pulled because I had heard that Sarasota County is making changes and upgrades to their emergency communication system. And I just want to make sure that these units are going to be compatible, or do we need to hold off until we find out what the county is doing? That's all.
No, I appreciate the question, and the radios that we're buying are compatible with the system that is in place currently and also with the system that we are going to be upgraded to. There was a radio project that was proposed several years ago to change the backbone of our radio system throughout the county. That is still in process. We had hoped that it would be completed by now. For a number of reasons, it is not. The original contract was awarded to Airbus through Sarasota County. Airbus was bought out by Motorola. So long story short, it's just taken longer than what they intended. But the radios that we are looking to purchase here are the same as the radios that we're currently using, the same as the radios that the police department is using and that they purchased earlier in the year. The biggest reason you see this in front of you tonight is because the police department bought radios earlier in the year, and with this purchase, that puts us over the $100,000 threshold for the city department to come back in front of you all. But it's a great question, and yes, there's no issues with compatibility or problems or anything like that.
Thank you very much. I'll make a motion to approve utilization of the Sarasota County Contract 2019-077 to purchase the radios from Motorola.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Take the vote.
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. Thank you.
That passes unanimously. We'll move on to public hearings. This is quasi judicial. It'll be the final plat, Grand Paradiso, Phase 4E, petition PLF 18268. City Clerk, would you please swear in those wishing to provide testimony?
Sure. Can I have everybody wishing to provide testimony stand and raise your right hand and bless you, whoever that was? Have you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge, so help you God? Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to go down the board. Commissioner Luke, ex parte disclosures.
I had an agenda briefing the other day, very short. All they did was read the title and said there was 33 plots.
Who was in the room?
Was with city manager and both assistant city managers and city attorney.
Vice Mayor?
I did not even discuss this at my agenda briefing, so I have 0.
I have 0. We did not discuss it at mine either.
Nothing.
Carousel, Commissioner Emmerich?
I did not discuss it at my agenda briefing either.
Okay. So I guess we move on to presentation. City Manager? You want to get?
Yes, Mayor?
It says City Manager here for presentation. I'm just going by the cheat
We have
sheet.
staff and a representative from Kimberly Horn to review and to, I think they're reviewing a report. Going over that.
Is it okay if he testifies from over here?
Do I have to be over there? Or?
No, I
I've
don't
always
mind
been
you.
over there, but I figured.
Yeah, I don't mind you being there. I mean, as long as you
Right
take
amount of
take
money,
your
you
time.
can stay there.
Perfect.
Librarian of a commissioner?
Yeah.
It'll be the first accusations.
Right? Put it on her blog. It's fine.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ty Grimaud. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates, and for the record, I have been sworn. I'm here on behalf of Lennar Homes, who is the applicant for this particular plat. The plat entails 33 single-family lots in the Grand Paradiso subdivision. It is one of, if not the last, phases to be platted in the community. I think that at this point, barring any changes to the plan, it will be totally platted out at this point. Not constructed, just lots platted. The 33 home sites are in what we used to call Phase 4E. They are located on the west side of the project on Portenza Lane and Cristoforo Place. Infrastructure, an infrastructure bond has been posted with the city, and I believe that the plat has been reviewed and by staff and the city surveyor. So with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
I think I have to move on to, do I move on to rebuttal yet? Staff, yep. City staff?
Heather Hansen, Senior Planner. I have been sworn. I really don't have anything else to add. This is a pretty straightforward. There's only 33 lots. There's nothing, really odd about it to note, so I was not going to give a staff report.
Okay, thank you. And I'm guessing you don't have a rebuttal to that?
We do not.
Okay. All right, do we have any public comment?
I have none.
Okay, I'll move on to questions. Commissioner, Vice Mayor McDowell.
Just one simple question. Are the roads already constructed for this plat, these platted areas?
The roads abutting this particular area are constructed. The roads that will serve these exact lots are under construction currently. So they are not constructed yet, but the infrastructure is bonded, and Lennar is actively constructing those roads and utility and stormwater infrastructure as of a month ago.
So these 33 parcels, the road for these 33 parcels is like under construction?
Yes.
Any ETA on completion?
I believe it's supposed to be by the end of the year, but that is subject to change. That's just the last that I remember. We're talking
Of this year?
Yes.
Wow. Thank you.
Commissioner Carson?
You said that the roads have not been constructed. Cristoforo Street, was that constructed or not?
Cristoforo is constructed up to the southern portion of these, where these lots start.
So there's no way to change that name to Cristofori, is there?
No.
Well, I just thought it would be kind of cool to have something named after Cristofori, because we had a resident here that was extremely involved in the city of Northport, and wouldn't that have been cool that, anyways, it was a thought. The big question, when people are selling in your area, are they telling them that they're part of the city of Northport? Because I've actually received quite a few phone calls that the realtors in that area are not saying that they're in the city of Northport, are actually quite the opposite, telling them that they're in Venice. And we run into this all the time.
Yeah, I've heard both sides on that. I believe the commission has made comment on similar plats a year, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, every time.
Every time.
Yeah,
But
we can't control the realtors.
That's what I'm.
Lennar has talked to their internal marketing people. I do not know if there's been any change. I do know that the postal address is Venice, and that's probably where they're pulling the information from, but there should be no, they're not, I don't know of anything that they're saying that they're in the municipality of, that they're not under the jurisdiction of the city of Northport.
They are, and this was as recent as just about 2 weeks ago.
I
So
honestly don't
just
have any
a heads
knowledge.
up, you might want to tell your guy at Lennar that maybe it's time to make another phone call because, you know, it's not cool.
I will take it back to them.
I'm done.
Good. Okay.
You ready for a motion?
Well, no, we have closing arguments. You have a closing argument?
We do not.
Staff, for the record?
No, staff has no comments.
Okay, yeah, so we created this sheet, so I gotta go buy it.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
on my list of things to do.
Okay, so I'll entertain the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve final plat Grand Paradiso in Northport, Florida, Phase 4E, petition PLF 18268.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Vice Mayor, do you have anything to that?
Nope.
Good. Commissioner Luke?
Yeah, some of the realtors, I mean, that's an official name, realtor, isn't always the issue, it's the salesman for your builders. And so those are the ones I would be speaking to. Usually a realtor, the trademark person knows how to do it. It's the salesman for the builder that has an issue. And be very nice to those people building the roads, please.
Yes.
Okay, let's take the vote.
Still should be Christopher, just saying.
That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move on to item B. Ordinance number 2019-03, first reading, amending the fiscal year 2018-2019 non-district budget. Can I get a motion to read ordinance by title only? We've got a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Take the vote. That passes unanimously. City Clerk.
Thank you. Ordinance 2019-03. An ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, amending the non-district budget fiscal year 2018-19 by providing for changes identified in Exhibits A and B, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, or Assistant City Manager, Branco.
Yes, Commission, we have Kim Farrell, Finance Director. She'll be walking through the ordinance and the various items that will be amended. I believe there is one change, is that correct? That will be going over, and that would be reflective on the fund balance report.
New Finance Director.
Before you go, I want to say welcome. This is our first time to have you up here.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Good evening, Mayor,
All right.
Commissioners.
Going
I'm
to the
pleased be here.
show. I
I
love
was
it.
happy to join the team about 2 weeks ago, so yes, thank you.
Wow, nothing like throwing her to the wolves the first month. Oh, God, poor thing. Couldn't even give her a little time.
So I'm here tonight to seek your approval of ordinance 2019-03. This is a requested budget amendment for the current year budget. The total amendment is $253,313. Of that, $127,100 is from the general fund, and that's related to the body worn camera initiative that we discussed earlier. $32,000 of that is the position, the service desk specialist, and $94,000 is the software subscription for the actual cameras. Moving on to the next fund that's impacted is the Law Enforcement Trust Fund. This requests $38,830, and that is to purchase a van for the special response team. The next fund that is impacted, that's for a van and then also for AEDs, $7,590 for AEDs. That's 6 of those that we're requesting. The next fund that's impacted is the Eschewed Lots Parks Fund, and this is really just the closeout of an old fund that we're done with the projects that we created it for. The next one that's impacted is the Utility Fund. This requests $76,180, and that's for 2 water main replacement projects. The first is $31,630, and that's for the South Salford Bridge crossing water main replacement. And then the other one is $44,550. That's for the Cranberry Bridge crossing main replacement. Now for both of those, there are proposed changes to the CIP that are attached. And I forgot to mention when I back at the position for the body worn cameras, there's an SLA attached, service level adjustment, and then the position description for that new role is also attached. Following those attachments, you will find the fund balance impacts. And I apologize, this is where for the general fund, I had an error on the original one that I submitted. The only difference, I highlighted all the numbers that changed on this revised one. The only difference is the $73,000 that was a prior budget amendment in this current year. I did not realize was included in the amended reserve use in the original one. So it got duplicated on the first one. This is the corrected one, so I apologize for that.
Okay.
So you can see.
Slide 2 weeks.
I'm sorry?
I said, we'll let you slide
Thank
this
you.
time,
That's my
2
one,
weeks.
I wasted
Yeah,
my one mistake, yes.
First meeting, first
That's
meeting.
it.
You're mulligan, that's it. You're done.
So if you're looking at the general fund analysis, the first column is where we're at currently. So if you go all the way down to the bottom on the new one with the orange highlights, the $668,720, that's how much I'm projecting at this time that we have in excess of the reserve policies, including both the 20% for the contingencies and then the 5% for the budget stabilization. We would still be at $668,000 above those policy requirements. Now, the column to the right is if this amendment is adopted, those are the impacts on it. And so at that point, we'll have a projected $509,000 in excess of the policy requirements for fund balance. And then there's the same analysis for each fund that was impacted. And none of those have changed. So the second one was the Law Enforcement Trust Fund. We would be projecting, if this is adopted, a remaining fund balance of $1,000. The next fund was the escheated lots and parks. That one, we're clearing that fund out, so we're saying it would have zero fund balance, so assuming this is adopted. And then the final one, the utility fund, we'd be projecting $10.2 million in fund balance remaining, assuming this is adopted.
That it?
That's it.
Are you all good? Okay. Commissioner Carrison?
So the parks, $11,203, where does that go?
It's moving to fund, it's stated in here, Fund 144.
Right,
And that's
which
where
is-
it came from.
What is it?
Oh, I don't know if we have June here, no. It is another parks fund, but I cannot remember the title of it.
Because this money was supposed to go towards refurbishment of current and existing parks, so I'm just hoping that this stays within that objective, or is it just a general parks funding source?
Here comes June.
Here comes the cavalry.
Hi, June Prosser, Finance Team. For the record, the 146 was created for a specific project out of the original Fund 144. So this is moving back into that sheeted lots parks master account. So it is not moving outside of the sheeted lots.
Do you remember what the 146 was for? Because I know that we had one that was set up for new parks, and they were specific projects, like the pool. And then we had one that was set aside for upgrading current parks.
And we
Those
could-
were the two accounts.
Right, and we could research that for you and bring it back to you with some additional detail. But to your original question, it is definitely within that parks, the sheeted lots parks.
Yeah, I just want to know what the intent of that 144 is, so that it may not be the same intent here today. Granted, it's minuscule amount of money, but what's the balance in there? 11,000 is not a whole lot of money but what is the balance in there now? It's how much? And
The balance in 144?
Yeah.
Okay, I can certainly get you that information back.
And then what were the requirements for that fund? Because like I said, I remember very clearly we had that fund separated out for two specific reasons, so.
I'm sure you do recall it, because the backup says that it was done in 2007.
I know.
To fund various park and recreation projects. The projects within the fund have been completed. So whatever you guys
But the
did back then.
pool's not complete.
Well, that wasn't part of the projects.
Yes, it was. I mean.
Well, they'd have to look in to see what it was.
I guess it wasn't. In '07, I guess it wasn't. I thought it was part of the engineering, but the engineering would be done anyways, so, yeah.
Maybe what we could
So,
do is
yeah.
have them bring back more information about Fund 146 and 147.
Yes.
144 and 146.
I'm sorry, 144
Yeah.
and 146.
I just want to know. And the balance.
Okay.
All right, I'm done busting your chops. Please come again.
If you're ready. Move to continue ordinance number 2019-03, amending the fiscal year 2018-19 non-district and capital improvement program budget.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner Carrasone. Commissioner Luke, you have anything to that? No. Commissioner Carrasone?
No.
Take the vote.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
We need to make an amendment to instruct staff to bring back for second reading the balance of 144 and 146 and what that fund is for.
Oh, during the second reading?
Well,
Oh,
the
yeah.
second reading.
Okay, I thought that was kind of a given, but, yeah.
Well, let's,
Okay,
let's
so
do
you
it
want to
right.
amend it, and I'll second that amendment?
To have staff bring back the balances of the Fund 144, 146, and also what are those two funds used for?
And I seconded that.
Thank you.
Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Carrasone. Is there anything to that, Vice Mayor? Let's
Got
take
it
the vote.
covered.
I'm assuming Carrasone didn't want to talk.
So that's an amendment.
All right, let's take the vote on the amendment. Amendment passes unanimously. Let's take a vote on the motion as amended.
Thank you.
Just kidding. No, right? It is not your second week here, lady.
It's your third.
I'm a student driver, I'm sorry.
Oh, that was nice.
You need a little yellow cone on her head.
Oh my gosh, that passes unanimously.
I love it. You
Okay.
know it's getting late, right?
Now, I have a question for the commission, as I fully believe that not much happens much after 9 very well, because the public doesn't listen, and we got a lot of staff here. We have really 2 more items that are kind of, I believe would draw some good discussion. However, on the 7th, we have almost nothing on that agenda. And I would like to ask if the board would be willing to move general business item A and B to the 7th, which has, literally like.
I think that's a good idea. There was only 2 presentations
Yeah.
at 1 o'clock, and then 4 o'clock was 2 proclamations.
Right, and that's it.
So, yeah, I'm fine with it.
So I have a yes by Commissioner Luke.
Is that okay with staff? Yeah? Okay. Well, then I'm good.
Does anybody want to stay later? Oh, okay. Vice Mayor.
To stay late.
Okay. Let's have a motion that Chief stays late, but the rest of us leave.
Yeah, whatever.
Good.
That's fine.
Commissioner
Cameras and look at what he's doing.
Great idea. Thank you.
So, you
Move
have a-
to table, right? Old attorney over there, Mr. Pinky? Okay.
Mr. Pinky.
Move to table general business, 7A.
Broke leg.
Well, he's fixed
One
his
foot,
legs and
broke
arms,
leg,
so
1 foot.
I got nothing left. Anyways, move to table 7A and B to the March 7th commission meeting.
Fuck.
It's March 7th.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Carrasone, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Let's take the vote. That passes unanimously. So we are going to move on. No
Okay,
public
that
comment.
fixed that, didn't it?
Nothing.
All right, I'm going to move on to commission communications. Commissioner Luke?
Yeah, I have a few things.
Can't wait till the 7th, that's what you're saying?
Right.
No, okay, I'm just teasing you. Go ahead, please.
The 7th
But
either, believe it or
I
not.
sat in on one of the advisory boards, and if we remember, go back to the last meeting, we were talking about them bringing back how much time they thought they would need, and there was going to be some instruction to them as to what was going on. And the liaison did not present it the way that we were discussing and that Mr. Yarborough was talking about. It was, the liaison just said, commission wants to know how long you think your meetings should be. There was no explanation of the conversation that we had here, the purpose in doing so, nor instruction to the board as to any of it. So I think that needs to be revisited by staff and maybe go at that again, because we put a 3-month limit as to that being finalized, being corrected. So I think we need to make sure the correct message is going forward to our volunteers on those boards.
Are we good, Ms. Branco?
Mayor, apologizes, was talking to the clerk about an item. I did not hear the question. What is the
Commissioner
question?
Luke, the city manager was ignoring you. Would you mind? No, I'm just teasing.
Assistant Manager Yarborough, did you hear me? Okay, good, because I glanced your way.
That is hysterical.
So are you okay with that, Ms. Branco?
Yes,
All right,
yes.
perfectly fine. We're good to go.
That's fine.
Go ahead, Ms. Luke.
Right. And there was, just to give little information, there was a letter sent out to the school board, and I wanted some clarification because I have been in the position running pools. And I know swim teams and that type of programming really enhances the funding for aquatic centers and pools. And so I just wanted to check with staff to make sure we weren't just simply asking for construction costs because that was being taken care of by surtax, but we are actually looking at school board for paying for programming.
Right.
So it helps enhance our funding for the aquatic center and pool. So just wanted that on public record.
Wait a minute, I can have Sandy, Parks and Recreation Director, come up and just speak to the programming part of the fees for the school to use for the pool. I'd like to know a little bit more.
For the record, Sandy Funheller, Parks and Recreation Director. In the fee schedule that was recently adopted with the aquatic center fees, there is a lane use fee that was in there and approved, and that is in there for practices, for swim teams and things like that. As far as any meets, when we had the discussion about the aquatic center and how it would operate, we talked about bringing anything large like that back to commission, because it would probably be a contract that we would do for a meet with all the different things that they would need and what those costs would be. And because it would vary based on the size or what their needs are, we didn't have a standard cost for hosting a meet.
I think what the commissioner's saying is that it would be good to have that conversation with the school board ahead of time.
Yeah, the
To,
letter was written to Mr. Bowden, and it was talking about them helping with construction costs.
yeah,
And it didn't talk about the funding for the programming. So, yes,
I
that's
think
what I'm
that
saying.
we're trying to get ahead of the curve, and that lane fee that's in that fee schedule, I personally never intended that to be the fee for the schools. I would think that there is a larger conversation with the schools that say by mutual agreement, you'll give X amount of dollars and this is what your use is, similar to what we do with the theater, you know? I wouldn't say that they just become just a leasee, that we actually need that partnership and that agreement in writing that says, this is what's gonna happen, these are the things that are gonna happen, and you'll pay for this, this, and this, and then in return, you get it at a reduced cost, or something to that, you know what I mean?
A negotiation.
Exactly.
A contract
We can definitely do
negotiable.
that, but that was the intent with the lane fee, was for When the
Oh,
swim
see,
team
I
comes
s-
in, this is what it's gonna cost per lane for practice.
And I
then-
saw the lane fee being something like the YMCA wants to start the Sharks, or if you get a kind of a subsidiary swim team that's not really organized with the school system, kind of like Huskies, you know what I mean? That's what I saw, or someone wants to just rent the lane for practice because they go to school in Sarasota. And
But I see what Sandy's talking about, because you have to have that base in order to start the negotiation. So
Oh, yeah,
you would-
yeah, yeah.
you would
No.
tell well, this is how much it would be, but we
Right.
can negotiate
No.
from there
So
and
just-
work through
I agree with that.
Just to clarify, we have already been in discussions with the school, the high school, the junior high, and also a water polo group. So we are getting their.
Yeah, see, water polo group, not affiliated with any of our governmental agencies,
Correct.
not affiliated with
It's
our
totally different.
tax-supported affiliates. That would be totally different.
Understand, and we're just trying to have those discussions now to know how we're gonna program what we're doing there. So we're having those discussions, we need to know what kind of hours they're looking at, when they'd like to
Good.
use it.
think
And
that's what
then
you're saying.
As far as any needs, everybody's needs are gonna be a little bit different. So we don't wanna have just a one price fits all. We
Right.
don't know what the lifeguard situation will be,
Yep.
we don't know if they are wanting to do anything special with the meet, so we need to have that discussion when it gets to that time. But right now, we're already talking about
And
what
I
the
would
programming
think,
is.
I would think that the governmental entities, i.e. the school board, have a different rate, lower than the Sharks, than the other organizations,
Are you talking about for the lane use or for the meets?
for anything.
We would have to bring that back, because that was not something that we brought forward in the fees that we had to approve.
I mean, I'm sure that the Sharks will have a discounted rate.
'Cause they're
If the lane
nonprofit, yeah.
price is, we'll say $250, I'll just pick a number. But when you're negotiating with the school board, obviously it's going to be less. But if you're negotiating with the Sharks, is it going to be closer to the $250, or are they going to get the same as the school board?
We would
That's-
need to bring that back to you, because we only have we can only work within the parameters that you've already approved for the fee schedule. So I can definitely have staff bring that back, but there's nothing in place right now with a graduated fee schedule for that.
So are you saying with the fee schedule in place, the school board would be charged the $250, and I'm just picking a number, for lane use when you're doing negotiations?
They are of the understanding that they will be charged for lane use. We've already had that discussion.
Okay. Going forward, if that.
I mean, that's why I brought it up. I appreciate that you already are having the discussions and negotiation will come about. I appreciate that. I was just a little afraid that, like we were asking for construction costs and then they were going to get free from there on out, because that's the way the letter kind of read. And no, that's a great way to collect funding. So thank you very much. You're on target. My last thing to bring up is SCAT. Oh, my God. This poor gentleman who just keeps being left at the SCAT things because there's no bus drivers. So they cancel the route, and the poor man's just left there and has to call somebody to come pick him up, take him home, or take him to work or whatever, because there's no SCAT drivers. And I mean, the letters, the emails are being forwarded to the manager of SCAT, but this is really difficult for our riders in Northport who need to get to Sarasota. This one gentleman's been doing it for 10 years. And he couldn't even he had to call somebody to drive him from Northport up to Sarasota. Another time he got as far back as Venice, and there was no driver to get him from Venice back to Northport. And so I don't know what we need to do as a commission. I know SCAT is run by the county, but
They're looking to privatize too, I heard.
Well, that's a part of the
And-
reason why the drivers are dropping off like flies, because they
That
don't.
has
they
been
won't-
a thorn in my side for 20 years. When we first started, there was 2 lanes, chat, Community Health Action Team gathered together and pretty much lobbied them to come and do more stops. And eventually we got them to come to the social service building, City Hall, so on and so forth. Now, it has become an absolute cluster. And I think the bigger problem is that until they get true leadership and a solid plan, I don't see anything changing.
Well,
Because
I attended the meeting that was out here at the bus, and it made it sound like there was just a couple of routes that were going to be done away with, and it was some that was lesser traveled and stuff. Made sense financially and stuff for SCAT, but never would I have dreamt that the routes that were left intact weren't being manned by drivers
No.
and leaving these poor riders up creek.
So maybe we can have a consensus to send a letter to SCAT addressing what it is that
And the
you've been
county
told.
commission.
Copying to the county commission.
And administrator.
That an administrator to make them know what's going on and ask them, what is the update? What is your intention? And how do you plan on addressing this? And we would like to know within the next 2 months.
Yeah, I think we need to probably spell it out too, some of the concerns that our citizens are facing
Yeah.
when we send this letter, so that way then they understand the concern and definitely get an update. I like the 2-month timeframe too.
Actually, I'd like to do it less time.
Well,
I mean,
it might take 2 months for them to.
Tell us what they're doing?
Maybe they don't know what they're doing.
Well, that was one of the parts that the writer had a problem with. He doesn't believe the county commission is actually
Aware.
receiving his emails, that it's being automatically forwarded to SCAT, and he's not getting the attention that he wants. He's not only just sending it to us, he is sending it to the county
I would say,
too.
I did talk to Rob Lewis last week, probably about the same thing, and the same guy that keeps doing it. And he did say that he spoke directly to him on the phone. So he is being contacted.
Not by the county commission.
Well, no.
That's who he's
by-
sending it
yeah,
to, and they're
yeah, by-
forwarding it out.
Yeah, by Rob Lewis, I think, who's over the
Jonathan
department.
Lewis?
Rob
Rob
Lewis.
is the development guy.
Like,
Yeah, I think he's over the,
economic development is over transportation?
he's the one that is. That's who I saw him at COG, and that's what he said. I'm the guy to talk to, so. Yeah, but he did say that he did directly talk to them,
Yeah,
him.
and told him that that was a one-time incident.
but it wasn't.
No.
All right, so I think the best way to handle it is to get a consensus, to send a letter to both the county commission, the county administrator, as well as the SCAT administrator, and to point out all these issues, to ask them for an update on where they plan on going with SCAT in the city of Northport, and
What can we do to rectify the situation for our citizens?
well, first we need the information. And so that's kind of what.
Well, to me, that's part of the information. How are you going to fix it? Because
we-
right now it's broken.
Well, you
And
need
it's
to know
never
their
been
plan.
broken for 10 years. This gentleman said for 10 years. He has not had an issue until this conversation of privatization has come up. And he says the bus drivers are leaving because of it. Whether that's true statement, but that's his conversations that he's had.
So can I get a consensus to write that letter to the county staff and county administrator?
SCAT
and
people.
the SCAT people, and to the county commission themselves, requesting the information, and,
Send a copy to this commission,
yeah,
please, when the letter goes out.
And to give them a
information.
2-month deadline.
2-month deadline, we'd like to see that
Yes.
information come back, and what is it that they plan on doing?
Yeah, and then what is the plan?
Yeah.
Good? Yep,
I'm
yep, yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd rather see it a month.
Okay. There you go. You have that? That is a unanimous consensus.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
So I wanted to say kudos and props to staff for the budget conversation with the citizens Thursday night and last night. We had probably a couple dozen citizens show up, so that was pretty darn good in my book. They gave some really great ideas. And I appreciate staff attending those meetings and being there and participating. So I just had to give props and kudos. Trying to think, Health and Wellness Fair was very good. I attended that. Trying to think what else was going on this past couple of weeks. Oh my gosh, like,
You kidding me?
Yeah.
Too much.
Getting ready for all the conferences, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else at this point.
I don't have anything, so Commissioner Carrasco?
You ready for this? I do.
Wow.
Shocker, right? So one of the things that I did want to bring up was the what is it? MD, DME, DMH, what are they called, Frank? DM homes?
Oh, HD, Hardin
H,
Dukes.
I knew there was a D.
Hardin
Okay.
Dukes.
Yeah.
Anyways, the HD homes and how they essentially have taken, they've robbed, thank you, robbed many, many, many people out of millions and millions of dollars. And they happen to own property on Price, by the way.
Yeah, I know that.
So this is not the first complaint that I have heard. There's others where particular people will have a house and they'll claim they're a contractor, and then they'll subcontract contractors, and so there's a lot of hanky stuff going on here. This is part of the building boom. You know this. You were
absolutely.
here. Okay, so what we had back in the day was called a contractor's licensing board. And what they did was when there was a complaint that came through, it gave them a certain authority to do things like prevent them from getting building permits from this point forward until they comply with paying these people back their money. They would prevent someone from getting pulling permits if they didn't have a license in the city of Northport. And they also worked on other things that had to do with economic development and building codes. They sat in on some of the building code changes at the time before we went to this stupid Florida building or international building code thing that we're in now. But my point is that this contractor's licensing board brought a lot to the table. Well, it was disbanded back, I don't know, I want to say 2012. I know I got a memo on it. Nope, 2015, right? And they, I think it, yeah, 14 or 15. It was around the time that they created the new way of doing code enforcement with the code enforcement magistrate and the secondary magistrate. And so by changing the code, they eliminated the contractor's licensing board. And so I think it's time that we reevaluate that. Maybe ask direction for staff to have NDS and Frank and pull some of these contractors together to create a board that would mirror and would work in conjunction with this special magistrate, because there are some things that they can't do now that they could do then, and maybe bring that advisory board back as part of its function. I don't know, I believe they still have some level of authority that they could have, depending on how we work the ordinance, like the permits and stuff, but there's also certain levels that would have to then be forwarded to the special magistrate. But all of that would have to come together by staff and in conjunction with
I'd
maybe
be
a task
interested.
force or something.
Definitely interested in that.
I just want to prevent this from happening to another person. And from experience and the boom that I saw from 2002 to 2006, this is not the end of it. This is just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. And if we don't have a safeguard, we're the ones who will be at fault.
Well, I had somebody write me that there's somebody in Northport doing similar things, but by a different name, so it's good timing.
Yep. So if I could have consensus, go ahead.
Can I weigh in on it?
Absolutely.
I think it's definitely worth looking into. I would like to double check the legalities because things that were done before, maybe things have changed with statutes and stuff like that. The other thing is I'd also like to learn why did they disband it? What was the reasoning behind it? Because if it was 2014 and 15, I don't understand why it would go away.
Well, I have a
I'd like
memo. Actually, this is something I've been working on for over a month now. I had contacted our city attorney as well as our NDS through the city manager. So I have a memo. City attorney has looked into it, and I will make sure that you get a copy of this memo.
I think all the commissioners should get it, not just me.
Yeah.
Well, that's
what she meant.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what she meant.
I just want to make sure.
And then you'll have more information. But anyways, in the meantime, I would like to ask for a consensus to direct the city manager or in whatever we're calling her today, interim city manager, to have staff of our director of NDS get together and formulate some sort of contractors licensing board to address any of it issues from in the future, and have that come back within the next 2 months.
I'm a yes.
2 months.
I'm a yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Rich?
Yeah.
Okay. That's unanimous. Is that consensus? Anything else?
No, but I'll go make that copy.
Commissioner Emmerich, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Okay. I know you got something. I'm gonna make you last. City clerk?
I won't make a copy.
Assistant city clerk?
Just email it to us.
I have one.
I think so.
I have one question. When she was talking about price, I noticed that there was a new construction on a corner lot. Didn't we state that if somebody was going to build on a corner on Price, to put the drive on the side road, not going out on the Price itself?
We had a,
thought we
thank you very
discussed
much,
that.
because back prior to 2010, you were supposed to have semicircular driveways
Yes,
in
you
your front
were.
yard.
Yes, you
And I
were.
don't know whatever happened to that.
Whatever happened to that?
Well, I didn't see where the drive was at on that corner lot, but I thought we had discussed that, so just trying to make sure that planning
lot of things
knows that
that-
those corners are supposed to be coming in and out on the side road.
Well, I think that when we did that comprehensive plan amendment, it was a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment. A lot, I know, right? Your hat.
Wink.
A lot of those things that we had put in place wound up not being codified or not being put in place because of specific
There is
staff that was
definitely,
here.
no, there is definitely ordinances about the circular driveways and stuff for Price Boulevard. I have it in my, I'll have to get the file, I'll have to get the ordinance or the code
And
number
how
or
are they
something.
getting out of
I
it?
don't
It
know.
was recommended, not mandatory.
Yeah, I'd have to check the
See, I thought
language.
the commission made it mandatory from that point forward, because that's why you'll see certain ones actually, unless it changed. I don't know.
City Attorney, can I ask a question? There's a sign on the property on Price Boulevard for Hardin Dukes. I know we cannot go on their property to do anything, but can we, because they're no longer a business and they're no longer a contractor?
I think they
Can
are.
we, no, I believe the state, they voluntarily released their contracting license to the state. Can we have them take the sign down, or can code enforcement, because it's not an existing business anymore?
If it's a code violation, we can cite them for that, I'm sure.
I think they would have to look at some
We'd have to look into
legalities
that.
of it, but if they can get that sign down, it needs to come down.
Somebody still owns the property.
I understand that somebody still owns the property, but if the sign promoting a business that is no longer in business, that I think is where you can take the sign down.
I think you better make sure that they're no longer in business, because last I heard, some of the property owners are going and making sure that they are pressured by the court to file bankruptcy. And you still have to be a business to do that, unless they file independent bankruptcy. So we
And
need to
maybe it's something
research
with their
that.
license that they can't.
Those corporate bails, so you don't have to do that.
I know because they're a general contractor, they have to have their general contractor's license on all advertising. And if they're not a general contractor anymore, that sign then may be invalid. So if somebody could check on that, I would be grateful and get back to us.
Yeah, because there's two different companies too. There's the development side and the real estate side, so we need to,
So can we look at the code?
it really is a
The
cluster.
code enforcement on that, maybe? Are we good across the board with that?
Yes.
Okay, we have a unanimous consensus. From
I'd
what I
like
see,
to
the
put a
heads
big
nodding.
old billboard up over top of it
Ms.
and
Branco.
say, don't work with them.
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, it's your communication now.
Hey, super fast. So,
Done? You already done?
I'm done. Exciting stuff. 2019 federal legislative priorities. So if you could take a minute, this is what was presented last year. We just copied it over. I've provided 2 pages on the second page. We have updated the statistics. What I'm looking for from you tonight is just to take a look at this list. Let us know if this will work, if any changes need to be made. Once I know that, we will be off to the printer. We're going to print you a couple hundred rack cards for you to be able to take to your 2 meetings in March, to the FLC and NLC.
Why would we take federal priorities to FLC?
Okay, maybe it's just the NLC.
Yeah, we don't need 100 of them. I think we need like 12. Not even 12 each, because we all go to the same meeting, you know? I'm just,
So if you take a moment, just take a look at the priorities.
Which, just for a heads up, I do agree with Commissioner McDowell. In the past, we've gotten like 1,000 of them, and it's like, what the heck are we supposed to do with all these?
Yeah.
So
Need
literally
about 20.
50 would be,
Or 10
25
apiece.
is tops.
Yeah.
About 10 apiece?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
50.
Yeah.
Them all to the mayor.
Well, no, I need 10.
Yeah, we'll give them all to Kerosene.
Don't you dare. Keep it up. I know where you live. Let's see.
I think we could take the support funding for widening of Price and River Road out. This is federal, it's not state.
No, there's
there's some
federal
dollars,
funds.
though.
Yeah.
The
You don't
administration's
wanna,
putting forth federal dollars for
Yep.
roads
But
and
wouldn't
bridges.
that all fall under municipal infrastructure projects?
well, you want to be specific, because those are the kinds of things that, had we had a lobbyist federally, they would go in and they would find those specific grants slash, you
What
know,
about
funding
the
sources.
interchange at Yorkshire? That is I-75.
Can we add that to then River Road and
can.
Price?
You can.
We can do that. Can we add Yorkshire to supports funding for widening of River Road,
Yeah,
Price, and
I would-
Yorkshire
Just say
Their interchange?
interchange?
Shire interchange.
The additional interchange.
Yeah, new I-75 interchange, I wouldn't
Yeah.
drill it down to Yorkshire.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I would, because I don't want them to say Raintree.
Yeah, you don't want them to go to Raintree.
Orlando then.
Yeah, exactly, I would
say Yorkshire
specify.
because that's where people, yeah.
Okay.
The additional interchange, planned.
New I-7.
Planned on Yorkshire, that, I
But-
mean, you guys can wordsmith it, but the idea is.
Y-75 Yorkshire interchange.
Yeah, that'd be good. Short and sweet.
There you go.
So, I believe all of this is still relevant, but a couple of things that I would like to see on here is one, that there needs to be true accessibility to veterans' health care. I know that the president has somewhat addressed it, but there's still a gap in specialists and procedures, and it's actually a big issue for people of the city of Northport to travel all the way up to St. Pete to get these larger procedures done that take 6 months to actually get an appointment. And so I think that, you know, a true reevaluation of the way that veterans' health care is administered and handled needs to be done.
I agree.
And I'm okay with just an evaluation for now, because I think you're gonna get more with just the words evaluation at this point, so that they can see what's going on, and then they'll make the determination of what to do to address it. I think we also need to address suicide. I think there needs to be a true, some sort of a advocacy, or, I mean, they do it for opioids, they do it for substance abuse crisis. We are in a true blue suicidal crisis where people of youth and stars on a consistent basis. We just had someone, a police officer, commit suicide the other day. I think that we are in an epidemic at this point, a mental health epidemic that really needs to address suicide.
Is there some way we can incorporate it into number 2?
That's
Because
what I
it
was
talks
thinking.
about mental health and that.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it could be mental
So a
health.
suicide prevention.
Exactly.
Yeah. Suicide prevention unit and funding, or funding source. And then my final one would be to make sure that medical marijuana is declassified. That is one of the things that has, and I remember we heard this in Florida League of Cities, that the classification was an issue. And of course, that was a year ago, so I can't remember what the whole story was. I'd have to look back at my notes. But and again, that's medical marijuana.
What's there to declassify with medical marijuana? I don't understand.
Because they're not a they're.
It's still a schedule, what, Schedule 1?
It's a
or
schedule, it's like the worst drug or something like that. You guys would know.
Schedule
What's the
1?
schedule?
But if it's medical
Schedule 1.
marijuana, it's,
Or is it Schedule 72?
It's like the same as heroin
They're not
or
paying
something.
attention to us.
No, apparently. No, they're actually, I see
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
I
it's
know
like the
that
same
look.
as like-
That's the look of, I don't know what the hell the schedule is. Do you know what it is? No, you don't know what it is. Well, then who does? How do we know?
I think it's
I
legal
get it.
Schedule 1.
Do you know what the schedule is?
On the same schedule.
What is it?
You're on a different schedule?
You're on their
I'm
schedule.
not gonna comment. Cocaine.
Okay.
Cocaine's on a different different schedule than marijuana.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, marijuana's on a worse
Right.
schedule, right?
No, cocaine.
So, if I remember correctly, it was one of the things that Florida League of Cities had said that needs to happen is that because it's scheduled at this high, or maybe it's not scheduled?
No, it is scheduled, so it's caused a lot of conflict in a lot of the cities in our state, well, actually lots of states, bringing the medical marijuana forward because it's, scheduled at that high.
It had to do with the money, that's what it was. Because it's not scheduled, or because of its schedule, it's considered an illegal substance.
It is, yeah.
And so therefore, that's
They're not
why
even
these
testing on it or
dispensaries
something.
and stuff cannot actually
Okay.
put money in the bank. Oh, finally, did you do some Googling or what?
City manager.
I
He
mean,
might be doing it, but there are,
no, he's not.
State your name for the record, since you're talking about drugs.
Without, I have to do research, but under 893, there are schedules and classifications. So the different types of schedules are, there's drugs that serve a medical purpose, that are a certain schedule, and then there's certain drugs that serve no medical purpose. And it's what Officer Gregory was saying is like cocaine. And at the time, the statute written marijuana was one of them because they identified that marijuana at that time served no medical purpose. So there are different classes and different schedules, yes. How we break it up, I would have to go back
But
and
this
research.
is federally, it's not state.
Right.
Yes, federal
Okay.
is identified, it still stands.
And so, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is
It needs
that
to be
because all of these
declassified.
states are declassifying medical marijuana as, a similar drug to, just say opioids, I don't know. Because it's,
Chief, you want to talk about the one thing that's going on with the academies about that too, about what the federal is saying? We can touch a little bit upon it. I know what you're trying to go at, but if we declassify, where.
it's not about declassifying, it's about classifying it correctly. That's what it's about.
The federal government still classifies it as an illegal substance. Therefore, the banks and stuff can't take the money in because it's still illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's why.
It's the
Oh,
same
it is
thing as
affiliated with the finances
Yes.
of it.
Municipalities are
That's what-
discussing now whether or not they're gonna hire police officers with medical marijuana cards. And the majority of the consensus that's being talked about is no, because
It's still
federal
an illegal
funding-
substance.
Federal funding will be in jeopardy
Mhm.
if your agency or municipality is receiving federal funds.
We could lose federal grants.
Right.
So, you see where I'm going with this, thank you. Thank you,
No
Chief,
problem.
and you didn't have to Google that.
No.
Thanks, you
We're
knew
here
that
all-
the whole time, you let me sit here
Well,
and
you-
flounder for
Google-
like 20
Google and
minutes.
Garrison are
Well, I
spelled
just
about
wanted
the
to
same,
figure out How
right?
many times you were gonna say schedule?
Right?
Commissioner, we're here all night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we did get a
Anyways.
consensus on that.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is to try to get medical marijuana classified as a legal substance, whatever that classification is. Because I
Or
think
at least a
that,
usable.
right,
Like a
something
medical,
where
yeah.
they can enter that, the fund, I'm not only, I'm not so sure about hiring police officers on medical marijuana, but I think that it does play a role in employment.
How does
It plays a role in the banking industry. It plays a role in the taxing, collecting the taxes. I mean, there's a huge kind of plethora of things that,
If I could weigh in, I'm for it, but these are Northport's priorities, legislative priorities, and I'm trying to understand how does that affect Northport?
because we have dispensaries in the city of Northport. And those monies are not being accounted for, nor are they going through our local banks where they're earning
I
money.
think this is a way bigger problem than.
Oh, I got another
stop in
bigger problem.
occasionally to some of the centers, and I stopped in one time when they were told they couldn't do the banking part, the cards and stuff, they had to strictly do cash. Oh my goodness, it was this big upheaval.
until they could get the financing part straightened out, so, yeah.
Okay, so we want to add that?
I
That's what you wanted to
do.
do?
I think you need to get consensus because it
Let's
doesn't,
go down the board. Commissioner
Yeah, I'm
Lee?
good.
As much as I would like to add it, this list is getting long, and the whole idea of this priorities list is to make sure that our representative and whoever we're handing it to is actually going to read it. And if you have a sheet that this long, they're not going to read it. So I'm a no.
Well, I think
I'm a
each-
yes in concept, a no for this.
I think, the way we've done this, it's adding to the already bullet points, so I don't think it's really going to
yeah,
have
this
that
is
big
only
of an
adding two
impact.
more.
So I'm a yes.
I'm
I know
yes.
Chris on yes. So we have that yes is 4-1. But one of them is in principle, just not in
Yeah.
policy. Okay,
Yeah,
that is it.
that's it.
All right.
Thought you said you had one more.
I'm about to
I
slam this
did,
down.
but I don't have a way to formulate it, so I'm not
Can I ask one
gonna.
question, Mayor? Sorry.
Not
For
gonna-
clarity on the consensus, so I heard about the suicide prevention to be added to number 2.
Suicide prevention and
And what was-
funding source.
Right, and funding source, I've got that. And then what on the veterans? I need clarification on that.
An evaluation of accessibility and care for veterans' health care. Or medical care.
Healthcare systems.
I don't
Okay,
know
we'll
how to-
wordsmith it,
You know what I
something
mean?
like that.
You had previously said true accessibility to veterans' healthcare.
See, that's what I'm saying right there.
But if you want to change it now, that's
Can
go.
you say that for the record? Can somebody say that for the record?
It was about true accessibility to
clerk in the
veterans'
back?
health care and evaluating that. Right?
Yeah. So
And I
now
got
we're
the
good?
rest. Yep.
Ms. Carasone, you done? Meeting adjourned.
Way to keep us here late, Ness.
I speak